Chapter 2549. Buzz. Buzz. The tip of the fiery red spear trembled violently, and the void buzzed because of it. Circle after circle of fiery red ripples surged out. The heaven-burning fire swept out, and endless magma also surged out. However, not a trace of it could cross over and affect Chu Yang's body. In an instant, everything happened. The clamor that filled the sky had already resounded. He blocked it. The god of pits easily blocked it. The god of pits is indeed worthy of being called the god of pits. His strength is definitely not just at the peak of the Nirvana realm. The peak of the Nirvana realm is just a facade, specially used to trick people. People were actually not very surprised. Instead, the pupils of the 6 great young masters of Taijing City, Huangfu Xian, Wang Lingyun, and the others, could not help but shrink at this time. Because this was the first time they saw Chu Yang make a move and saw his strength. From this, they could be sure that if nothing had changed, Chu Yang, a country bumpkin at the Nirvana realm, could kill a saint like killing a chicken without any problem. Wu Chou was not surprised at all. He did not even have the slightest emotional fluctuation. Chu Yang was able to silently appear in front of me and hear the conversation between me and my mother. How can he be simple? Waha. Chu Hang. This divine bird requests a pause to open the parrot lecture. The parrot attacked again, but young Qingsha did not pay attention to it at all. His expression once again revealed a surprised expression. He could not help but say, "Bastard, you surprised me again." Then, he sneered and said, "Do you think my great Tao is only 300 and 500 feet long?" Whoosh! The fiery red spear in Chu Yang's hand suddenly disappeared. He could not control it at all and could only let it escape. The great Tao was formless and could disappear at any time. That was why martial artists could use the great Tao as a weapon without any scruples. Chu Yang naturally knew this clearly. Because of this, he could not help but ponder in his heart. How can I grasp the great Tao? In fact, he had another question in his heart. What did young Qingsha mean by the saints of the past and the saints of the present? Looks like I have to open up the heart net to understand everything. Chu Yang indeed looked down on young Qingsha. He felt that using the heart net was a form of blasphemy. Of course, there was something wrong with his mentality. Because of this, he was no different from young Qingsha, whom he hated, and the 6 great young masters of Taijing City. Once the mind net was opened, he quickly understood the 3 stages of the sage's great path. He also knew about the 4th stage. He was very surprised that the great Tao of the saints was still changing. This was something he had never thought of, nor did he know. Shua. While Chu Yang was doing these things, the fiery red spear had already flown back to the top of Yangqing's stone. It transformed into a great Tao once again and expanded into a great Tao that was 3,500 feet long. Afterwards, the great Tao changed again. It was like a massive, lava-colored ribbon that unfurled in midair. In an instant, it went from 350 zhong long to 500 zhong long. The 500 zhong long great Tao seemed to have paved a huge path in the void. It was as if it was specially paved for a deity. It was extremely shocking. A 500 zhong long great Tao was really too long. According to Chu Yang's calculation, it was 1,500 meters long. Who could have such a long great Tao? In an instant, Chu Yang's pupils shrank. He carried the great Tao with his physical body and had not condensed his own great Tao. If he had condensed his own great Tao, would it be 500 zhong long? If he used the cultivation of a Saint Array master and obtained the great Tao of heaven and earth, would the great Tao he condensed be 500 zhong long? He had never tried this before. Chapter 2550. The 500 feet long great path was like a magma dragon that stretched across the air. It was a spectacular sight that made people lose their minds. Then, the great path disappeared. Instead, the huge arena seemed to have turned into a group of volcanoes. Magma pillars shot up into the sky one after another, accompanied by tongues of fire. It seemed to have turned into a world of magma in an instant. This scene caused Chu Yang's eyes to involuntarily narrow, whereas, the spectators below the arena were already filled with astonishment. Obviously, the 500 feet long great path also made them incomparably shocked. Chu Yang reacted quickly. Facing the magma pillars that spurted out from below the arena, he immediately dodged. This was the combat examination. He could not leave the arena. Leaving the arena's range was equivalent to admitting defeat. However, the troublesome thing was that the arena had already become Yang Qingsha's. He did not know where the magma pillars would come from, and when they would come out. Everything required Chu Yang to judge for himself. If he did not react quickly enough and was accidentally hit by the magma pillars, then he would probably be in a life and death crisis. He might even be directly obliterated. The arena was like the mouth of a volcano. This was naturally not for no reason. It was the result of Yang Qingsha's great path fusing into one with the arena. Fortunately, Chu Yang's perception was sharp. He could deal with Yang Qingsha's method very easily. This was naturally not Yang Qingsha's trump card. If it was, it would definitely be much more dangerous than this. At this moment, Yang Qingsha was already teasing Chu Yang. He wanted Chu Yang to be in a difficult situation so that he would appear to be in a difficult situation. His anger disappeared as quickly as it had come. Bastard, you're really nimble. Yang Qingsha was at the other end of the arena. He had his hands behind his back and looked at Chu Yang with interest. Chu Yang did not speak. The reason why he had not made a move yet was because he was not completely confident. A 500 feet long great path was really too shocking. At this moment, he also did not have the chance to confirm whether the strongest great path condensed by his array formation cultivation could be 500 feet long. The reason why he did not know this was because he never knew that a great path could be so long. At the same time, he did not want to reveal his identity as a Saint-grade array master. It was not difficult for him to use his cultivation as a Saint-grade array master. His skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and internal organs were the formation seals while his body was the formation. Only the Tao of heaven and earth was the seal. He had to be careful to avoid being discovered. Yang Qingsha's disdain for him and his teasing had given him a great opportunity and time. Bastard, are you having fun? Can't you be happier? Yang Qingsha realized that the magma pillars couldn't do anything to Chu Yang. So, with a thought, those magma pillars quickly turned into a huge magma palm. This magma palm was 10 times bigger than the entire ring. It blotted out the sky and the sun as it came crashing down. A huge shadow was cast down, and the area where Chu Yang was at was immediately plunged into darkness. The magma hand slammed down, and he had nowhere to run. Boom. As the magma hand slammed down, Chu Yang's figure disappeared. The only thing that could be seen was the magma hand collapsing and turning into magma that flowed violently in the arena. After that, the magma gathered together and transformed into a huge hand once again. When it grabbed at the air above, people suddenly realized that Chu Yang was already in midair without them noticing. At this moment, Chu Yang's eyes were solemn. He could clearly feel that the power of the fire way in the magma hand was extremely terrifying. If he was hit by that level of power, the consequences would be unimaginable. He did not dare to take it head-on. Boom. The magma hand missed its target once again, and immediately scattered into magma, covering the sky and covering the earth as it poured down. In an instant, it transformed into a huge screen of magma fire. Chapter 2551. Below the arena, people looked at the amazing magma waterfall in mid-air, and the corners of their mouths could not help but twitch slightly. Such an attack was really terrifying. Rumble. The endless magma waterfall poured down like a heavenly river. Chu Yang was on it, and his tiny figure was almost like an ant. He frowned even deeper. It was not a good idea to keep dodging, and if he was not careful, he might be seriously injured. It seems that I can't keep dodging like this. I have to try anyway. Otherwise, I'll really be looked down upon by that thing. He pursed his lips slightly, and a trace of sarcasm flashed across his handsome face. Immediately, his whole body shone like a divine sun, and he flew toward the magma waterfall. Below the arena, countless eyes clearly captured such a scene, and suddenly there was an outburst of exclamations all over the sky. This move seemed to be no different from suicide. After all, the magma waterfall was transformed by a great path that was 500 feet long. Yang Qingsha could not help but squint his eyes. Chu Yang's move was once again beyond his expectations. Chu Yang's figure was very fast. In an instant, he was submerged by the magma waterfall and disappeared. The next moment, Chu Yang silently rushed out of the magma waterfall, and all eyes immediately fell on him, safe and sound. Yang Qingshi's eyes suddenly became cold and fierce. Kungshan is safe and sound. A great path that is 500 feet long can't do anything to him. Kungshan is obviously deliberately creating a tense atmosphere so that he can surprise us later. In the words of a broken bird, Kungshan's conscience has been greatly damaged in order to show off. Soon there was a great commotion, and many people could not help but laugh. It seemed that as long as Chu Yang was there, it was difficult not to laugh. It seems that I'm not bad either. After successfully passing through the magma waterfall, Chu Yang knew in his heart that there should be no problem for him to use the formation to condense a great path that was 500 feet long. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and there was immediately a great surge of power in the void, which turned into a giant cyan dragon, and rushed into the magma waterfall with a long roar. At the same time, he created 3 copies of himself. One of them threw out a punch, which turned into a giant golden fist and smashed onto the top of the waterfall. The other held a knife in his hand. He slowly pulled out the knife to cut the water, but the water flowed even faster. He raised a cup to drown his sorrows. He wanted to cut the waterfall in half with his knife. The other person wielded his sword and suddenly moved. A clear sword hum resounded, and rays of sword light were released. They tore through the sky and whistled towards the waterfall of fire. It was as if the waterfall of fire was a piece of cloth that he wanted to cut into strips. Chu Yang finally retaliated. He treated Yang Qingshi's great Tao as a formation, and wanted to dismember it like a formation and completely destroy Yang Qingshi's great Tao. Once he succeeded, Yang Qingshi's great Tao would be dismembered and he would definitely lose. How could Pit Deity give him the time to reform his great Tao? Bastard, are you daydreaming? Yang Qingshi's cold voice rang out under the gazes of countless people. Soon after, a gigantic magma fist rushed out from the waterfall of fire. A blade and several sword lights also burst forth. Dong! The 2 gigantic fists met, and a loud sound erupted, like the sound of a heavenly drum being beaten, shaking heaven and earth. Clang! 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 Saber and saber collided. Countless sword rays were like 2 armies fighting. Thousands of soldiers and horses were hacking at each other. The sound of saber and sword was as dense as the sound of rain, resounding between heaven and earth. Saber lights and sword shadows were crisscrossing in all directions. What an amazing battle! If an ordinary saint were to face such a collision, he would die immediately. I'm afraid that even a 9th stage saint would be useless. The most amazing thing is that Yang Qingshi is only a 1st stage saint. Pit Deity is even more ridiculous. No matter how I look at it, he is only at the peak of the Nirvana realm. Chapter 2552. Bang bang bang. Clang clang clang. As the 2 huge fists collided, the 2 fists finally broke apart. On the other side, the result of the collision of the sword and saber was also out. They were equally matched. The confrontation stopped for a while, and the light that burst out from the collision made the void beautiful, like the morning glow on the horizon. In addition, the wind was howling, and the energy in the sky was sweeping. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the 2 figures in the air. The first battle of the top 50 was already so intense, then what about the next battle? What kind of shocking battle would it be? The 6 young masters of Taijing City had not even fought yet. If they fought, it would be terrible. Yang Qingshi changed people's view of him imperceptibly, and they even developed a great respect for him. Not to mention other things, he forced Kungshan into a disadvantageous position, which was very shocking. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that Kungshan was deliberately creating a tense atmosphere, or creating suspense. Anyway, according to the law of broken birds, Kungshan was usually very relaxed. Naturally, people also knew that the battle between Kungshan and Yang Qingshi had just begun. It was a battle between the top candidates of this year. Despicable, can I ask you a question? Chu Yang blocked Yang Qingshi's attack, but Yang Qingshi was not angry at all. He was not in a hurry to attack, and he actually asked with interest, and sneered, "Can you answer me? Are you trying to show that you have more leisure time than I do?" Chu Yang looked at young Qingsha opposite him. To be honest, he was a little surprised. Why was this guy not angry, and became like this? Leisurely and carefree? Young Qingsha's tone suddenly turned cold. Do you have the qualifications to be leisurely and carefree? You think I am not qualified? This is more interesting, and it can also show my awesomeness. Chu Yang tried to completely infuriate young Qingsha. He pretended to ponder over the words he should use. He said, "Yes, it should be awesome. Although it's a bit vulgar, it's direct, relieving, and has great spirit and boldness. Despicable, I wanted to play cat and mouse, but you don't seem to agree. What should I do?" Young Qingsha's voice turned even colder, and he directly provoked, "Lowlife, do you dare to accept a deathmatch? I'm sorry, but you haven't reached that level yet." Chu Yang blew the hair on his forehead and said with a smile, "So, I refuse. The reason is very sufficient. Please accept it." Haha. His words made everyone burst out in laughter. Young Qingsha was furious. These words should have been said by him, but they came out from that lowly mouth. He almost exploded in anger. Faced with the laughter of the entire crowd, he used practical actions as a response. Rumble. People immediately heard a rumbling sound, which seemed to be the sound of a large river surging towards the sea. Immediately after, lava gushed out from the top of young Qing's stone like a great river, flowing along the void. In the blink of an eye, the fiery red river appeared in mid-air and was still surging. There was no riverbed in front of them, so they created a riverbed. There was no history in front of them, so they created history. It was as if the long river of history had appeared. Rumble. The surging torrents in the long river suddenly stopped. That fiery red long river extended for 6,000 feet and stopped. A 6,000 feet long great path. Everyone was speechless and dumbfounded. Many people had never seen such a long great path, nor had they ever heard of such a long great path. Lowlife, is that enough? Young Qingsha saw everyone's reaction, and his anger immediately turned into joy. He smiled happily and said, "If it's not enough, then I'll continue. Do you have any objections?" As soon as he finished speaking, the red long river surged and surged again. In the blink of an eye, it had surged for 1,000 feet. People were even more shocked, and young Qingsha was even more proud. "Do you think this is the limit?" As he spoke, the great path that was 7,000 feet long instantly extended for another 1,000 feet. A great path that was 8,000 feet long. Chu Yang originally thought that young Qingsha had gone mad from anger and had become a pervert. However, the continuous shocking changes caused his pupils to suddenly shrink. He was shocked. His mind was buzzing, and he was extremely shocked. Lowlife, why don't you take a guess? Is this the limit?" Young Qingsha's ear-piercing sneer was like a sharp knife stabbing into Chu Yang's heart. Chu Yang felt a sharp pain, but he was even more confused. What's going on? Could it be that young Qingsha's great path can extend infinitely? His heart completely sank at this moment. Facing such an opponent, he was afraid that this imperial examination would end here. Chapter 2553. Cheap bastard, why don't you take a guess, is this the limit? Young Qingsha's words didn't just stun Chu Yang, they also stupefied many people. Many people stared blankly at the 800-meter-long path in the sky. It was a path that looked like a magma river. This was too unbelievable. Someone could actually condense an 800-feet-long Grand Dao. It was unbelievable. Such a Grand Dao was completely beyond people's imagination. Could it be that the fourth stage of the Grand Dao evaluation will have a qualitative change? Could it be that in the future, 800-feet-long Grand Daos can be seen everywhere? Naturally, some people thought of this, and Chu Yang also thought of this point, but he still didn't know the specifics. "No, I have to figure out what is going on first, otherwise I won't have a way to deal with it." Under such an extremely terrible situation, Chu Yang's heart quickly calmed down. This wasn't too dangerous. The situation he encountered in the past was much more dangerous than this. Moreover, it wasn't as if he didn't have a trump card now. Just now, he was just shocked. An 800-feet-long Grand Dao was really too amazing. The next thing was very simple. If he wanted to know the answer, he just needed to find it in Yang Qingsha's mind. Originally, Chu Yang thought that he would need to spend some effort, but at this moment, all the secrets directly emerged in his mind. This country bumpkin must be dumbfounded. It's just an 800 feet long grand dao, and he's already scared out of his wits. He really doesn't know anything. But this is also good. I want to bully this country bumpkin like this. If I do this in the Jin capital, I'm afraid I'll be laughed at. How would I dare to be so presumptuous? This was Yang Qingsha's inner thoughts. He was very proud of himself. So, the contempt and ridicule he felt towards Chu Yang emerged in his heart. And, the thoughts in the depths of his heart were completely exposed. So, it was very easy for Chu Yang to catch them. What? The heavenly spirit world is still in the growth stage. How is this possible? That's right, this should be the case. Otherwise, why would the grand Tao of a saint keep changing? And now there are already 3 stages. This was Yang Qingsha's memory. When he first came to the Jin capital, he was shocked to hear that the heavenly spirit world was still in the growth stage, but he soon figured it out. The heavenly spirit world is still growing, and as it grows, the grand Tao will also change. Fortunately, I haven't become a saint. Otherwise, if I have condensed a grand Tao, I will be abandoned by the era. The heavenly spirit world is slowly growing. It's getting stronger and stronger. It's already at the stage of a qualitative change. Luckily, I came to Jin City at this time, otherwise, I would have missed such a great opportunity. In Jinju, Yang Qingsha began to rejoice after his initial shock. He rejoiced that he had not formed his own great Tao and that he had come to Jinju, the center of the heavenly soul world, the place where the changes were most intense. He had a reason to rejoice. If he had become a saint in advance and condensed his great Tao would only be 3,000 feet long at most. But now, it was different. The grand Tao he could condense was more than 300 feet long. This alone was enough, not to mention there were other things, so how could he not be happy? When Chu Yang learned of this, he was also inexplicably shocked. The heavenly spirit world was still in the growth stage. He also completely understood why Yang Qingsha was so amazing, because he stood at the forefront of the era, as if he had mastered the most advanced technology, turning the impossible into possible. Naturally, it was incomparably amazing. Chapter 2554. Young Master, this Yang Qingsha is really treating me like a country bumpkin and humiliating me. Chu Yang finally understood. His heart was gloomy, but he didn't have the time to care about these feelings. He wanted to understand the most advanced technology as quickly as possible. At this moment, in Jin City, many people had already realized that the heavenly soul world was undergoing a great change and understood many mysteries. The changes in the heavenly Tao had already transmitted to the martial Tao, causing a great change in the martial Tao. However, all of this hadn't spread yet, so the world didn't know about it yet. However, the great change in Jin City was extremely shocking. It was very likely to overturn the previous martial Tao system. In the future, there would be no life and death realm, and great emperors would only be saints. The 3 realms of saint, earthly sovereign, and great emperor would also be redefined. The reason was very simple. The heavenly soul world had become stronger, and the heavenly Tao had become stronger. In the future, the saints, earthly sovereigns, and great emperors would naturally become stronger because of the world they were in. This was what Yang Qingsha meant when he said, "The saints of the past are the saints of the present." What? The myriad divine world is also undergoing such a change. Great emperors would only be saints. This news was enough to shock Chu Yang. He never thought that the myriad divine world would undergo the same changes as the heavenly soul world. However, he soon figured it out. If the heavenly soul world was like this, why couldn't the myriad divine world be like this? He even understood why the myriad divine world was so determined to invade the heavenly soul world. The changes in the world, during this process, would bring about a great fortune. If one could obtain such a fortune, the result could be imagined. Who would refuse such an opportunity? Standing on the wind of an era, even if one doesn't put in a lot of effort, they will still be forcefully carried away by the tide. Chu Yang understood this logic very well, and it was also incomparably simple. However, where was the wind of an era? How could one find it? How could one stand on the wind of an era? This was the difficult part, the most difficult part. Among the myriad of living beings, how many people could accurately find the wind of an era and stand on it? Then, they could rely on the wind to send them to the cloud. Martial spirit theory. When Chu Yang thought of this, he suddenly trembled. Wasn't this the opening of a new era? But, how do I go up? Destiny Twins. Divine Cauldron. Chu Yang immediately used the Destiny Twins' martial soul and activated the Divine Cauldron at the same time. In an instant, his consciousness split into two parts. One part followed the Destiny Twins and flew along an indescribable path. The other part followed the Divine Cauldron and was directly swept into a storm. In an instant, he could sense the entire heavenly soul world. He even saw an illusory world on the other side of the heavenly soul world, a world that wasn't real. The martial spirit is just a projection of another world in the heavenly spirit realm. He was shocked again. He immediately thought of this point in the theory of martial spirits. He didn't expect it to be true. On the other side, the consciousness carried by the Divine Cauldron seemed to have entered the intersection point where many epochs converged. One epoch after another was imprinted into his perception. The grand scene shocked him to the point where he was almost numb. The martial spirit is an extremely simplified version of the Great Tao. His three consciousnesses followed the dragon martial spirit and the saber and sword martial spirit and entered the world of dragons and the world of sabers and swords. When he sensed these, he didn't make any movements. He found himself rolling forward uncontrollably. He was like a small boat under the influence of the wind and the current. He was already rushing down a river. Chapter 2555. The martial spirit is just a projection of another world in the heavenly spirit plane. When he thought of this again, he found that the two-dimensional coordinates in his body had changed drastically. In an instant, they had become three-dimensional coordinates. Divine Cauldron. Caused by many epochs. Wave after wave of shock, one great change after another, continuously attacked his mind. He was overwhelmed and had no idea what was going on. For some reason, he seemed to have become a tycoon and a great man. Is this the feeling of standing at the top of the world? Chu Yang was shocked. He had no time to adapt to all the changes that had happened to his body. And all the changes were not over yet. Because of the dragon martial spirit and the saber martial spirit, three more great Taos were formed in his body: the Great Tao of Dragon, the Great Tao of Sword, and the Great Tao of Saber. There were too many changes and they were too drastic and too fast. He had no time to feel it and everything had happened. In addition, everything was still changing rapidly. It was as if every second was an epoch. In the blink of an eye, many things had happened and many things had been missed. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang didn't have the energy to pay attention to Yang Qingshe in such a state. But he had no choice but to pay attention to him. It was a terrible feeling. It was as if he had to talk nonsense with someone before he could even pick up the money. However, it would not do if he did not respond at all. He was silent for a long time. Yang Qingshe sneered and said, "Country bumpkin, who asked you to be a mute? Don't you know that I asked you to answer me?" After a pause, Yang Qingshe asked again, "Country bumpkin, do you think that a great Tao of 800 feet is my limit? This will make you happy, right?" At this moment, Chu Yang really wanted to kill someone. He actually wasted so much precious energy on this thing. "Happy?" Yang Qingshe smiled and said, "You can say that. Because of your arrogance, I am very happy now. Especially when I see that you are a mute, I am very happy. I am very unhappy." Chu Yang was very unhappy. "I want you to be unhappy. Then shouldn't I make you unhappy too? Do you have the ability? What do you think?" Chu Yang planned to deal with Yang Qingshe immediately. With a thought, he immediately activated his frost spatial dragon martial spirit. Soon after, a loud and clear dragon roar resounded throughout the entire arena. Then, a huge dragon rushed out from the void above his head and hovered in midair. In the blink of an eye, the length of the dragon had exceeded Yang Qingshe's great path, and it was still extending rapidly. 9,000 zhong, 10,000 zhong. At this moment, the dragon finally stopped. The Great Tao of the Dragon was 3,000 meters long. Boom! The crowd was like a huge firecracker that had been ignited and exploded with a bang. The sky was filled with cries of astonishment all of a sudden. Heavens, a great Tao of 10,000 feet. How is this possible? A great Tao of 10,000 zhong. Unbelievable, this is unbelievable. Everyone was completely frightened by this scene. It was as if they had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. Their pupils dilated, and they couldn't help but tremble. Chapter 2556. The crowd burst into an uproar in an instant. It was as loud as a tsunami, and it was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. However, it rose quickly, and fell quickly as well. The extreme uproar suddenly fell into an extreme silence. This was very strange. Generally speaking, after the uproar erupted, it was very difficult to calm down in a short period of time. This was especially so in such a situation, especially when no one asked for it. The reason why all of this happened was because what happened was too shocking. Until now, Yang Qingsha's eyes were still in a daze as he stared at Chu Yang's 1,000-feet-long Great Path of Dragons. His gaze did not blink, as if he had been petrified. His consciousness seemed to have been drawn into a shocking world. Huangfu Xian, Wang Lingyun, Xie Xiubua, and the rest of the 6 great young masters of Grand Capital City watched this scene in shock. King Qi, Wang, Xie, Chen, and Wu family heads, as well as Shangguan Yun, had all stood up at some point in time. Their gazes were all on the 1,000-feet-long Great Path of Dragons in the sky. Wu Chou, Rui Zi, and Xiao Xiong were naturally shocked as well. However, they had already reacted. Other people might not be able to do such a thing, and they probably did not have the ability to do so. However, that bastard Chu Yang could do it. This was not worth making a fuss about, because this was how things were like. They all had a deep understanding of Chu Yang. This lowly person caught the change in the heavenly Tao, but how did he know? Huangfu Xian could not understand. Logically speaking, a country bumpkin like Chu Yang should not know this. How did he know? Among the 6 great young masters of Grand Capital City, Huangfu Xian was not the only one who was so puzzled. The other 5 were all the same. Swoosh. The 6 of them seemed to have thought of something as their sharp gazes stared at the stunned Yang Qingsha. It's Yang Qingsha. Yang Qingsha activated his great path and leaked his aura. That country bumpkin sensed it. After they found the reason, they thought for a moment and suddenly trembled as if they had been struck by lightning. How is this possible? How is this possible? He just caught the change in the heavenly Tao and immediately comprehended it. He obtained the creation. This was too terrifying. Once he sensed the change in the heavenly Tao, he could immediately comprehend it and grasp the great profoundness. He was on the same frequency as the heavenly Tao and the world. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. He probably didn't just catch the changes in the heavenly Tao. He should have caught it long ago. He was deliberately hiding his strength. Yang Qingsha infuriated him, so he revealed his true strength. The 6 of them were all in denial, because according to their thinking, Chu Yang, this country bumpkin, was too terrifying. Who could compare to him? The 6 of them believed that their talents were peerless, but they were able to capture the changes in the heavenly Tao. However, they did not know how much time and effort it took to condense a great Tao that was thousands of feet long, or even longer. It could be said that they had exhausted all their strength. Therefore, no matter how impressive Chu Yang was, they couldn't possibly be worse than a fart of Chu Yang. How could they have known that Chu Yang possessed the Destiny Twins and the Divine Cauldron? The Destiny Twins were related to destiny. Even if one couldn't come into contact with such an opportunity in destiny, it could still change one's destiny. It was extraordinary to come into contact with it. Chu Yang didn't know what the Divine Cauldron was, but he was sure that it was not inferior to the Destiny Twins. It might even be able to obliterate the Destiny Twins. Chapter 2557. As time went by, the crowd began to talk. The god of fraud is indeed the god of fraud. He hid so well that he could display a great way that was 10,000 feet long. This is not called hiding, this is called digging a hole. The god of fraud dug a hole so deep that we almost fell to our death. I thought the god of fraud would just surprise us, but I didn't expect him to give us such a big shock. Everyone recovered, including young Qingsha in the arena. He looked as if his soul had just returned to his body. With a dull look, he asked Chu Yang, "How did you do it? Is it so difficult?" He was just pretending. "You bastard, do you think you've won? Do you think my great way is only 8,000 feet long?" Young Qingsha immediately roared. It seemed as if he was about to scream at the top of his lungs. "Please continue your performance." Once again, young Qingsha's face contorted. "Bastard, bastard, just you wait." As he roared, the 800-foot-long magma-like path silently extended to 10,000 feet. However, it didn't stop and continued to extend for another 1,000 feet. 11,000 feet long. "I follow." Chu Yang could only spare some energy to deal with it. He wanted to prolong the fight with young Qingsha as long as possible to ensure that he could better understand everything that was happening to him. When young Qingsha's great way extended to another 1,000 feet, Chu Yang's great way also extended. "I follow. I follow. I follow." As this continued, both of their great Daos extended to a length of 1,500 feet. And because of Chu Yang, this contest between the two was like two gambling gods. Whatever the enemy put in, he would follow. "Bastard, I don't believe that your great way can be 2,000 feet long." Young Qingsha seemed to have put in all his effort. He was going to reveal his trump card and decide the winner. In an instant, his great way directly extended to 2,000 feet before it stopped. Really? At this time, if Chu Yang had the leisure, he would definitely get possessed by the god of gamblers and confidently open his cards. Then, he would decide the outcome of the battle in one fell swoop and severely injure his opponent. However, he did not have the energy to do so, so he immediately revealed his trump card. Whoosh! His way of the dragon suddenly elongated like a huge dragon. In the blink of an eye, it surpassed young Qingsha's great path and was still extending rapidly. 2,100 zhong, 2,300 zhong, 2,500 zhong. In the blink of an eye, the great path of the dragon became 3,000 feet long. It stretched across the void like a dragon and a river, shocking everyone's eyes. 3,000 feet. Impossible. How is this possible? Thump. Thump. Young Qingsha's complexion changed drastically, and he instantly lost all color. It was as if he had suffered a heavy blow. He actually retreated a dozen steps in the arena before he could stop. However, his body was still shaking, and it seemed as if he could fall down at any time. The impact on him was too great. Originally, he thought that with this, although he could not display his strength in Jinju, he would be able to amaze the world when he returned to Taijing City. Who would have thought that this would be the result? In this way, he was nothing and had no value. He did not know how to deal with his pride and self-esteem. Therefore, he could not accept it. He could not accept it. 3,000 feet long? Is this shocking? Chu Yang asked. Young Qingsha trembled violently again. He pointed at Chu Yang with a trembling hand. Young Qingsha had used the length of his great path to humiliate Chu Yang. Now, he directly returned the favor to Chu Yang. "What are you shocked about? Is this so difficult? I really don't understand your reaction, son of a bitch." Young Qingsha was so angry that his vision turned black. His body shook, and with a plop, he fainted. For him, this was too humiliating. Chapter 2558. Chu Yang did not care about this and said to the referee, "Can you announce the results?" The referee was also a little confused. After hearing this, he hurriedly announced, "The first battle of the top 50, Chu Yang from the Eastern Wilderness wins." Swish. After hearing the results, Chu Yang immediately left and disappeared. The 6 great young masters of Tai capital did not even have time to follow him. Since he was in such a hurry, he naturally wanted to find a place to feel the changes in his body. However, when he found a place and was about to sit down, he realized that everything had completely stopped. It was easy to understand. No assistance could last forever. There had to be a time when everything calmed down. When the wind rose again, only then could the sails be raised again. All the strangeness naturally disappeared as well. Chu Yang was completely blind when he tried to capture that dizzying strangeness. He seemed to have sensed something, but he couldn't tell what it was. He seemed to have caught something, but he didn't catch anything in the end. Maybe it was because of the Destiny twins and the effects of the divine cauldron that it had completely disappeared. He could only find this explanation. However, he did not give up. He still calmed his heart and carefully felt his body. He sorted everything out this time. He had too much inspiration and gained too much. As long as he could comprehend quietly, he would definitely gain something. And this gain would definitely bring about a great change to him. However, although it was good to think about it, it was very cruel to actually do it. He could no longer enter that strange state and all the inspiration had disappeared. Why is it like this? He really did not understand and could not find the answer. In the end, he could only give up. After that, he felt that a lot of time had passed. He was worried that he would miss the combat examination and could only return. The 25th battle of the top 50 is also the last battle. Examinees Wu Chou and Wu Ce, please come up to the stage. When Chu Yang returned, he just happened to hear the referee calling out Wu Chou and Wu Ce's names. His heart shook. This is a good opportunity. Wu Chou was definitely not weak. How could Wu Ce not use his full strength when fighting against Wu Chou? This way, he could understand Wu Ce's strength and the 6 great young masters' strength. Wu Chou against Wu Ce. Such a battle was naturally very shocking. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Wu Chou. Isn't he the one who killed the Wu clan's father? It is indeed him, but who would have thought that he would actually dare to participate in the imperial examination? Why wouldn't I dare? Do you think the Shaman epoch is weaker than the immortal epoch? Wu Chou belonged to the Shaman epoch, while the Wu family belonged to the immortal epoch. The clash between the two seemed to be a clash between two destroyed epochs. It was also a clash between the Shaman Dao and the immortal Dao. Therefore, everyone, including Chu Yang, was attracted by this battle. A battle of life and death. The moment Wu Chou stepped onto the stage, there was no expression on his face, and there was no hatred in his eyes. He only used that dead face of his as he coldly said those 3 words. The combat examination had a life and death battle. It was only allowed under the circumstances where both parties were of similar strength and only a life and death battle could determine the victor. If Wu Chou and Wu Ce were close in strength, then it would be fine, but who would know if they were not? Therefore, the entire place was in an uproar again. A battle of life and death. Oh my God, this is really fierce. It's not very strange. The two families have a grudge against each other, so there is nothing impossible about a battle of life and death in the combat examinations arena. If it's a battle of life and death, then this will be the first battle of life and death. I wonder if the examiners will agree. As long as Wu Ce agrees, there shouldn't be a problem. After all, the Wu family's power is there for all to see. Chapter 2559. Life and Death Battle. Chu Yang heard Wu Chou's words and his pupils constricted. This was too rash. Wu Chou was not sure of his opponent's true strength. If he were to engage in a life and death battle, he might be the one to die. This was his thought. He understood that Wu Chou must have his own thoughts. Therefore, he could not speak at this time. When Wu Chou spoke, all eyes fell on Wu Ce. They were waiting for Wu Ce's answer. Did he agree or not? Do you want to kill me, or do you think that our strength is similar? Wu Ce crossed his arms and looked at Wu Chou with a carefree expression. He then said, "Sorry, your strength is far inferior to mine, so I don't agree." Good choice. Wu Chou was about to attack. He was not as talkative as Chu Yang. He would not force or entice his opponent to agree. This was Wu Chou. He was too lazy to do such things, and even more disdained to do such things. As for killing Wu Ce, as long as he wanted to kill him, he could do so at any time. Wu Chou was also arrogant and condescending. Of course, he was also extremely confident in himself. You're really infuriating. Wu Ce felt Wu Chou's contempt. He crossed his arms and looked at Wu Chou coldly. Looks like you want to die early. Did I come up here to listen to your nonsense? When Wu Chou said this, he was expressionless. His arrogance was obvious. Even Wu Ce was not worthy of his emotions. To Wu Cho, Wu Ce was just a mad dog. He could kill him at any time. The mad dog could bark as much as he wanted. I agree to a life-and-death battle. Wu Ce changed his words. His expression was completely cold. I grant you the same death as your father. If Chu Yang heard these words, he would definitely explode in anger and would definitely do something. However, Wu Cho did not have the slightest reaction. This caused the arena to instantly become silent. Wu Cho, you want to apply for a life-and-death battle? The referee confirmed. Yes. Wu Cho's answer was simple. Does your mother agree? Wu Cho seemed to know everyone. Even the referee asked the same question. I agree. As soon as the referee finished speaking, an old woman's voice sounded out, and she added, a life-and-death battle in the arena. Life and death depends on one's ability. I will absolutely not interfere. This was naturally the voice of Wu Cho's mother. She spoke calmly, but her voice was domineering. Okay. The referee immediately looked at Wu Ce. You also want to apply for a death match, right? Yes. The referee immediately looked in the direction of King Chi's group, but before he could speak, a voice came from there. I agree. These 3 words seemed to carry a great weight. When they fell into everyone's ears, their hearts couldn't help but sink. After these 3 words were spoken, it was almost certain that this battle would be a battle of life and death. Therefore, this caused the atmosphere of the entire arena to become even more oppressive. The enormous martial arts practice field was like a giant, and its breathing seemed to have become incomparably heavy all of a sudden. At this moment, Chu Yang's eyes involuntarily narrowed. Whether it was Wu Cho or Wu Ce, both of them seemed to be extremely confident. Wu Cho, Wu Ce, do you insist on this? The referee seemed to be shocked as well, and his breathing seemed to have become heavier. Yes. Yes. The 2 of them seemed to speak in unison. The referee once again solemnly said, Wu Cho, Wu Ce, I will ask you one more time. Do you insist on this? Yes. Whether it was Wu Cho or Wu Ce, their voices were sonorous and powerful. They were also extremely certain, and there was not the slightest trace of hesitation in their voices. Chapter 2560. The judge was very cautious, and this was his last confirmation. Once it was done, there would be no changes. Life and death were their own responsibility. I already know. There's no need to say more. I know everything very well. Wu Cho and Wu Ce's unwavering voices caused everyone's hearts to involuntarily rise as they became incomparably nervous. The last battle between Wu Cho and Wu Ce is a battle of life and death. Now, let's begin. As the judge's voice fell, many people felt as if a heavy hammer had smashed into their chests. In that instant, they almost suffocated. Wu Cho aside, Wu Ce was one of the 6 great young masters of Grand Capital City. With such a noble status, he actually chose to take such a dangerous risk. The entire place was deathly silent. Even Huangfu Xian, Wang Lingyun, Xie Xiaobue, and the others could not help but feel solemn at this moment. Their gazes were fixed on the arena. Clang! The sudden sound shocked everyone. Then, they saw that Wu Ce had unsheathed a good saber out of nowhere. When the saber was unsheathed, the saber radiance burst out like a rising sun. The entire place was filled with dazzling and sharp saber radiance. It was so bright that people could not open their eyes. It was so piercing that it hurt their eyes. This was definitely a good saber, a peerless godly saber. There was no doubt about it. Wu Ce pointed at Wu Cho with his saber. I just said that I will grant you the same death as your father. I'm ready. Wu Cho did not reply at all. He only spoke. He said those words without any emotion, as if they were spoken by a stone. On his cold face, the 2 eyeballs embedded in his eye sockets did not move at all. The light in them dimmed even more. At this moment, he seemed to have become a dead person, a stone. All of his aura was restrained to the extreme. Wu Ce's saber had already moved, but Wu Cho's left hand, which was holding the saber hilt tightly, was still motionless. It was terrifying. Wu Ce's pupils suddenly shrank. He felt an extreme sense of danger. His heart completely calmed down, and his aura was restrained to the extreme. I'm going to make my move. Wu Cho spoke again, but Wu Ce did not respond. Everyone knew that once he made his move, it would definitely be an earth-shattering strike that would shock everyone. Whoosh! Suddenly, Wu Cho moved and disappeared from where he stood. Then, in an instant, he appeared in front of Wu Ce. He raised his saber high and was about to chop down on Wu Ce's midline. Half of the blade was black, and the other half was blood red. He did not know when the saber was unsheathed, nor did he know when it appeared above Wu Ce's head. No one could see it. Even Chu Yang could vaguely see a part of it, but not all of it. This strike caught everyone off guard, and they couldn't react in time. This was the saber move that Wu Cho had painstakingly cultivated for many years. When the saber was drawn, it shocked the world. Wu Ce was not slow, not one bit slower than Wu Cho. Unknowingly, his saber had been raised high, aiming at Wu Cho's midline, and was about to chop down. His saber was equally astonishing, and it also made ghosts and gods weep. The moment the two sabers appeared, saber energy filled the air and swept out in all directions. In an instant, the arena was split into two halves. Wu Cho saw Wu Ce's saber, but his expression did not change. His saber did not change either. It was as if he did not see Wu Ce's saber at all. Destruction of jade and common stone. This lunatic. Wu Ce's expression changed drastically. He suddenly changed the direction of his saber and pulled it back, blocking above his head. Whoosh! A saber light flashed, and Wu Cho's saber finally fell. After that, no one saw anything. Chapter 2561. On the stage, Wu Ce maintained the same posture, holding the blade above his head. He did not move, and his expression did not change. It was as if he had been petrified. The situation was very strange. No one knew what had happened, let alone who won and who lost. However, everything was already over. It was so fast that almost no one could understand what had happened. Clang! Clang! When Wu Cho had completely walked down the stage, the blade above Wu Ce's head, that peerless blade, fell to the ground in two with a crisp sound. At the same time, a line of blood burst out from Wu Ce's body. Then, in the silence, everyone only saw a smear of red. They saw Wu Ce split into two halves and fall to the ground with a loud bang. There was no sound at all. Wu Ce died. Wu Ce died. He was directly split into two halves by Wu Cho's blade. He couldn't be more dead. At this moment, everyone seemed to be suffocating. No one made a sound, as if everyone was afraid to make a sound at this moment. Wu Ce was one of the 6 great young masters of Tai capital city, the most talented genius of the Wu clan. The consequences of his death would probably be world-shaking. Seia. A mournful voice like that of a wounded beast finally pierced out, causing everyone to be shocked for no reason. It was as if their nerves were cut by a blade. They suddenly trembled in fear. Are you an idiot? Quickly run. Under such circumstances, Chu Yang saw that Wu Cho was still walking as steadily as Mount Tai. He could not help but curse in his heart. This thing seemed to be stupid. However, what he was worried about did not happen. He only saw a figure appear on the stage out of thin air. Then, Wu Ce's body that was split into two disappeared. There was not even a trace of blood. After that, nothing happened. It was as if nothing had happened. However, the crowd was very depressed and did not make a sound for a long time. What's the situation? Why is the Wu clan so restrained? Chu Yang could not understand. If his son was split into two halves, why would he care about nonsense? He would definitely go crazy and kill a bunch of people. There would be countless casualties. As for the consequences, how could he care about them at this moment? So, he maintained his suspicion and vigilance. However, until the end, nothing happened. Even as the voices of the people gradually rose and became louder and louder, it was still the same. What the hell? Chu Yang did not understand at all, but he did understand that when Wu Ce pulled back his saber to block, Wu Ce had already lost and died. Wu Cho was not afraid of death, Wu Ce was afraid of death, then the one to die in the end would definitely be Wu Ce. Hot piece motherfucker, this Wu Cho is really scary. He's too ferocious. Chu Yang was also a little shocked by Wu Chou, but he could generally understand Wu Chou's mentality. Anyone who had been reminded for more than 10 years that their father had been chopped in half by someone with a knife would probably be swallowed up by something and become extremely terrifying. Wu Ci's words, "I bestow upon you, die like your father." That was purely courting death. It would be strange if he didn't strike you to death. The top 50 of the martial trial would end here. It started with Chu Yang's 3,000 feet Great Dao and ended with Wu Chou killing Wu Ce with one strike. No matter how rich one's imagination was, they would not be able to imagine it. And this was only the top 50. After that, what about the top 25, top 13, and so on? What would it be like? The further the martial trial went, the more tragic it would be. That was because none of those who could advance were weak. Chapter 2562. The martial arts practice field was silent and the arena was empty. The impact of Wu Ce being split in half by Wu Chou was too great. Even though Wu Chou had already walked down the stage, and even though Wu Ce's corpse had already disappeared, the audience was still extremely silent. Wu Chou wins. When the referee made the final announcement, the crowd that had been suppressed for a long time finally broke out into a huge commotion. This is unbelievable. Wu Ce is one of the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city. He was actually split in half by someone, and it was just one strike. Just one strike and Wu Ce was split in half. Wu Ce could not even block one strike. What kind of saber technique is that? Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? Wu Ce, one of the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city, actually ended up like this in the Imperial Combat Examination, dying without a complete corp. That Wu Chou is simply too amazing. I'm afraid his strength is far beyond the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city. Who knows? But that Wu Chou's saber technique is simply godly. I did not even see him drawing his saber or withdrawing his saber, but everything was already over. Wu Chou's saber technique must have reached a level that can shock the heavens and make ghosts weep. Otherwise, it would not have ended up like this. I wonder what will happen to the remaining 5 of the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city if they meet Wu Chou. Will another one die? Another one die? Hiss, many people could not help but take in a breath of cold air. One death was already a big deal. What would happen if another one died? However, after some thought, it did not seem to be impossible. Wu Chou and Wu Ce had a feud, but Chu Yang also had conflicts and grudges with the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city. Just the emperor's new clothes alone made Huang Fu Xian and the rest want to kill Chu Yang immediately. Therefore, if Chu Yang met the 6 great young masters of Thai capital city, another one might really die. It might not even end there. 1 or 2 more would die. The 6 great young masters of Thai capital city all died in the Imperial Combat Examination. At that moment, some people had such a thought. It might not necessarily become a reality. If Chu Yang made it to the finals and defeated Huang Fu Xian and the others, such a thing might really happen. The death of the 6 young masters of Taijing was extremely shocking and hard to imagine. If it happened, who knew what would happen? Chu Yang received a huge hint. Wu Ce was afraid of death, but were Huang Fu Xian, Wang Lingyun, Xie Shoubua, and the others not afraid of death? These people were afraid of death, and this could be made use of. Very soon, his train of thought was clear. If he wanted to turn his idea into reality, he would need to examine it before he could implement it. Otherwise, it would only backfire. Most importantly, how exactly did Huang Fu Xian, Wang Lingyun, Xie Shoubua, and the others react to Wu Ce's death? What kind of impact did they receive? It was hard to tell from the surface, but Chu Yang was different. He had the heart net. At this moment, he once again realized how heaven-defying the heart net was. Immediately, he activated the mind net and probed the minds of Huang Fu Xian and the others. Using your own life to exchange for the lives of those bitches. Wu Ce, you're really smart. Bitch lives. Chapter 2563. This is troublesome. If we meet Wu Chou, we have to be extremely careful. This Wu Chou deserves to die. Not only did he split that idiot Wu Ce in half, But he also split our reputation in half. In a battle of life and death, if you don't have absolute confidence, you definitely can't agree to it. Huang Fuxian and the rest had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their emotions were extremely complicated. Wu Chou splitting Wu Ce in half was a huge blow to them. In the past, they thought that they were superior and that no one could surpass them. However, this reality was completely shattered. At this moment, they had no choice but to face this reality. Looks like it's going to work. Chu Yang felt this and couldn't help but laugh. The smile on his face was despicable. Wu Chou's move not only shocked the 6 great young masters of Taijing City, but also gave him a huge inspiration. Those who were barefooted were not afraid of those who were wearing shoes. To the 6 great young masters of Taijing City, they were wearing shoes, while Chu Yang was barefooted. There was nothing that they couldn't afford to lose. The list of the top 25 is as follows: Eastern Wilderness Chu Yang, Ru Yi Zi of Ru Yi Sect, Taijing City's Chen Buchuan, Taijing City's Xie Shoubua. Before the start of the top 25, the chief examiner of the imperial examinations appeared and read out the names of the people who had advanced. Finally, he said, the examinees that I just read out, please come to the main arena to draw lot. The battle between the top 25 was, of course, based on the drawing of lots. These 25 people quickly ascended the stage one by one and went to draw their lots. When Chu Yang went to the arena and drew his lot, he couldn't help but have a thought. The top 25, the next round should be the top 13, and the next round after that should be the top 7. This meant that among the top 25, top 13, and top 7, there would be a free pass for one person. If he could draw a free pass, he would naturally be very lucky. It would be very beneficial for him to obtain the first place in the martial examinations. Therefore, Chu Yang had a thought: how could he be so lucky to draw a free pass? Could it be possible that Huang Fuxian and the others knew in advance which lot was the empty one? If I can find out, then it will be easy to get a buy. Not only would he be able to hide his strength as much as possible until the end, he would also be able to observe the strength of his opponent. I know the enemy, but the enemy doesn't know me. This way, my chances of winning are naturally higher. Of course, these were not the only benefits of a buy. They would not be involved in a fierce competition, and they would be able to conserve their energy. Of course, the imperial martial examination did not rely solely on one's strength. Luck played a huge role as well. Top 25, Wang Lingyun has a buy. Chu Yang was holding his lot number 7. While pondering over this matter, he walked down the ring. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the referee announcing a buy from the ring. His eyes couldn't help but narrow. Is Wang Lingyun's luck that good? Out of the 25 people, it just so happened that he, who belongs to Taijing City, got the buy. He directly used the mind net to capture the mental fluctuations of Wang Lingyun and the others, as well as the referees. It's a pity that I didn't manage to draw the 1 in 5 chance. I was the first to grab 1 out of the 5, but my luck was so bad that Wang Lingyun actually took advantage of it. Sigh, there's really nothing to say about my luck. Hearing this, how could Chu Yang not understand? There was indeed something fishy about the drawing of lots. No wonder the number of people entering the next round was an odd number, and not an even number. This was clearly prepared for the 6 great young masters of Taijing City. Damn it, playing this bullshit trick again. Chapter 2564. Now, according to the results of the draw, we will announce the battle situation of the top 25. The first battle, number 7 Eastern Wilderness Chu Yang versus number 15 Tai Capital's Chen Buchuan. Motherfucker. When Chu Yang heard this, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Why is I the first battle again? Do I have to start every round? The referee's voice was full, loud, and full of energy. It resounded in the audience and fell into everyone's ears. The crowd was originally listening to the battle situation. It was very calm, like a calm sea. However, when they heard this battle, it was like a calm sea, and stormy waves were instantly set off. Pit God is the first again, and is going against one of the 6 young masters of Tai Capital, Chen Buchuan. This battle is going to be interesting. I really don't know what will happen. Pit God's luck is really heaven-defying. Not only is he the first battle again, but he's also drawn such an amazing opponent. Wrong, wrong. The first battle belongs to Pit God, so he's naturally the first battle. Otherwise, he won't be happy. At first, the crowd was surprised, but gradually, it completely changed. It became extremely mocking, making everyone burst into laughter. Chu Yang could only smile bitterly. His luck was really heaven-defying. He was always the first battle. Eastern Wilderness Chu Yang vs Thai Capital's Chen Buchuan, please come to the stage. After the battle of the top 25 began, Chu Yang and Chen Buchuan immediately went to the stage. On the stage, when he saw Chen Buchuan, Chu Yang's upper lip touched his lower lip and directly spat out 3 words, life and death battle. As soon as these 3 words came out, Chu Yang immediately saw the sea of people behind Chen Buchuan. Suddenly, there was an uproar, and many people were whispering to each other. With a swish, Chen Buchuan's face became gloomy. His eyebrows were furrowed, and he was even gritting his teeth. Chu Yang couldn't imitate Wu Chou's cool demeanor, but his sloppy demeanor was still standard. He shook his feet and said bluntly, "You little thing, I'm telling you now. Barefooted people aren't afraid of wearing shoes." Originally, this sentence didn't have much effect, but you didn't. Which of the 6 great young masters of Thai capital doesn't think highly of themselves and feel that their lives are precious? Therefore, that's right, this is a psychological pressure on you. I'm just asking you if you dare. Chen Buchuan felt humiliated by speaking so bluntly. In a fit of anger, he might agree, which would result in the opposite effect. But at the same time, it would also make Chen Buchuan realize that Chu Yang was deliberately provoking him. Even if he was beaten to death, he would not agree to a life and death battle. After all, there was Wu Ci's example. Naturally, this was a psychological game. And from the moment Chu Yang started speaking, the psychological game had already begun. Bastard, since you know that you're not worth shit, then you should know that you're not worthy. Chen Buchuan sneered again and again as he stared coldly at Chu Yang. Do you understand now? You are not qualified to fight me to the death. Such an answer was very good, at least many people would applaud Chen Buchuan. You little thing, can you not imitate my words? Chu Yang picked his ear. I've said similar words to Yang Qingsha before. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Outside the field, Yang Qingsha, who had just woken up, felt as if he was hit in the back of his head with a stick. He was very embarrassed. His vision turned black, and he almost fainted again. Ridiculous. Chen Buchuan was unmoved, and only responded coldly. All right. Chu Yang shrugged and spread his hands. Then let's put it this way. If you don't dare to fight to the death, it means that you're a coward, afraid, and not confident. Do you think you can still win against me? Chapter 2565. Hee hee. Chu Yang smirked. Is that really the case? Or do you want to deceive yourself and wear the emperor's new clothes again? The emperor's new clothes. When these words fell into Chen Buchuan's ears, his face suddenly turned purple. His blue veins were throbbing incessantly. He glared at Chu Yang with a pair of angry eyes. His gaze seemed to have released a group of GU worms that wanted to devour Chu Yang's skin and bones. Don't have such a big reaction. Chu Yang shook his feet and said, people must dare to face the bloody truth and the bleak life. This commander hopes you can be strong and courageous. Every word pierced Chen Buchuan's heart. He was too lazy to pay attention to Chu Yang's cheap mouth, or to admit that he was no match for Chu Yang's sharp mouth. He looked at the referee and said, please announce the start of the match. Life and death battle, do you dare to accept? It was as if Chu Yang had beaten Chen Buchuan, a mouse, back into its hole with a stick. He directly blocked Chen Buchuan's path. I said, you are not worthy to have a life and death battle with me. Chen Buchuan's teeth were about to break. Then, this commander will analyze and summarize for you. Chu Yang raised his index finger. First, you agreed to the life and death battle, you are likely to end up like Wu Ce. Second, he raised his middle finger and shook it as he said, you didn't agree to the life and death battle, but you lost your drive from the beginning. In essence, you didn't have enough confidence in yourself. In such a state, you can only lose. You will be beaten into a dog by me, a dog that is close to a dead dog. Third, He stretched out his ring finger and shook it. You can deceive yourself on the above 2 points, but you can't deceive yourself. After wearing the emperor's new clothes again, you will fall into one of the first 2 states. Chu Yang ended the conversation with a grin. You can make your choice now. I'll be waiting to watch you make a good show. After saying that, he crossed his arms and waited with interest for Chen Buchuan's choice. Wu Chou, Rui Zi, and the others were already looking at the 2 people on the stage with shining eyes. They had never imagined that Chen Buchuan would fall into Chu Yang's rhythm right from the start. Huang Fu Xian, Wang Lingyun, Xie Xiubua, and the others were filled with hatred. This life and death battle was far too disadvantageous for them. They definitely wouldn't be able to endure those people who didn't even have shoes on. At this moment, the crowd below the stage was already in a heated discussion. They were originally waiting for a big battle that would be intense, or a short battle like the one between Wu Chou and Wu Ce. In any case, anything was fine. However, they had never expected that what awaited them would be a battle of words and a battle of personal feelings. The god of fraud is really eloquent. Chen Buchuan is about to suffer internal injuries. I seriously suspect that the pit god is digging a pit. If Chen Buchuan is not careful, he will fall into the pit. He will see stars and his bones will be broken. Shouldn't you have a clear understanding when fighting with the god of pits? Either don't let him speak, or block your own ears. Is that useful? Who knows, maybe he will fall into a shallow pit right from the start. As the crowd was discussing, they realized that there was nothing wrong with this. This could be seen as a warm-up. After they had warmed up, their emotions would be much calmer and more carefree when they watched such a big battle. No matter what, such a beginning was very interesting in itself. The crowd watched with relish. Do you have trouble choosing, you little thing? Chu Yang spoke again. Give me an answer. Crack crack. Chapter 2566. Chen Buchuan was having an intense mental struggle. He didn't know Chu Yang's background at all. Naturally, he didn't dare to rashly challenge Chu Yang to a life-and-death battle. Although he didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. He didn't dare to accept Chu Yang's provocation. He had already lost in terms of momentum before the battle even started. Since he lost in terms of momentum, the outcome of this battle was already decided. I admit defeat. In the end, Chen Buchuan gritted his teeth and left the ring. What's going on? Chen Buchuan admitted defeat. After a moment of silence, there was an uproar. Many people were very surprised and even found it hard to believe. Chen Buchuan admitted defeat. Am I seeing things? The god of deceit made him admit defeat with just a few words. Is this the legendary subduing the enemy without a fight? Is it being performed here at this time? It's going to blind my dog eyes. Where's the promised battle? It's gone just like that. Huang Fu Xian was stunned and then furious. Chen Buchuan had simply disgraced the 6 young masters of Taijing City. However, if he were Chen Buchuan, he probably wouldn't know what to do. This was Huang Fu Xian's mentality. It was also the mentality of Shangguan Can, Wang Lingyun, and the others. Chu Yang is certainly amazing. But we don't know the details of his background. Our eyes are in the dark. We are in a very passive position. We are at a complete disadvantage. Everyone, am I handsome? Chu Yang said shamelessly. Many people were speechless. Chu Yang wanted to continue his performance, but he was immediately chased out of the arena. When the second round of the top 25 began, it was Wu Chou's turn. Originally, everyone was very excited, thinking that they could see Wu Chou's amazing means again. However, they didn't expect that when Wu Chou asked for a life-and-death battle, his opponent would directly admit defeat and jump out of the arena. If there was nothing wrong with this, then the third person would also do the same. His opponent would also directly admit defeat, but it was different. Many people had already smelled that something was wrong. In the fourth battle, it was the Rui child's turn. He did the same, using the words battle of life and death, directly subduing his opponent without fighting. After 4 consecutive examinations, the entire crowd was in an uproar. No one had ever seen such a ridiculous imperial examination in Taijing City. And the one who started all this was that guy called Chu Yang. This was soon recognized as the Chu Hang mode, and many of the subsequent matches were the same. Only Huang Fu Xian, Shangguan Can, and Xie Xiubo disdained to use the Chu Hang mode. They fought with their opponents for a while before finally winning. It was just that when the three of them won, they found that Chu Yang and the others, who had defeated them without a fight, they were in a much more difficult situation. On the other hand, the other side was very confident and at ease. The three of them almost wanted to die. Thus, the top 25 quickly came to an end. Immediately, the top 13 began to draw lots again. The drawing of lots for the top 13 will begin now. All examinees, please come to the stage and draw your lot. Whoosh! As soon as the referee finished speaking, a figure shot onto the arena like a bolt of lightning. His hand had already reached into the lottery box. A martial artist's perception was very strong, especially for these geniuses who were in the imperial examination. They were extremely strong, but in the lottery box, there were 4 lots that could be sensed through a special method. Naturally, this method was only known to Huang Fu Xian and the others. Because Chen Buchuan had been eliminated, there were only 4 such lots left. What's going on? Is there anything to fight for in the lottery? Chapter 2567. Waha, the free lot is mine this time. Chu Yang laughed wildly. Everyone immediately understood what he was thinking. Heavenly spirits, earthly spirits, Taishang Lao Jun is here. He mumbled as he stretched his hand into the lottery box. At the same time, he seemed to be jumping around. Soon after, everyone heard him roar, "Draw the free lot, hurry up." He grabbed a lot and fiercely pulled it out. Then, he opened it and saw that it was a buy lot. He immediately laughed wildly. Waha, this marshal's luck is really heaven-defying. I didn't get anything out of the 13 lots and got the buy lot. Was this for real? Many people couldn't help but stretch their necks to look at the lot in Chu Yang's hand. Everyone, believe it. My luck is indeed heaven-defying. Chu Yang was very understanding and didn't let everyone be curious for too long. He opened his lot and showed it to everyone. It really was the free lot. Damn, did the god of traps dig out a lot of luck? The god of traps must have hit the jackpot this time. The god of traps can really give people surprises. Who would have thought that he would pass this round like this? Unlike the others, Huang Fu Xian, Wang Lingyun, and the other three's expressions became extremely ugly. The free lot that belonged to them had been snatched away by this lowly Chu Yang. To be honest, Chu Yang's luck was indeed not bad. There were 4 lots that could be sensed, which meant that there was a 25% chance, but he got it. Therefore, he grinned from ear to ear, revealing 8 teeth. This lowly person. Even someone like Wu Chou couldn't help but curse in his heart when he saw Chu Yang's smug look. Chu Yang got the free lot, so the other 12 people could only fight in pairs. The 12 people were Wu Chou, Rui Zi, Huang Fu Xian, Shangguan Can, Wang Lingyun, Xie Xiubo, and so on. Talented Lady Xiao Xiong was not willing to fight to the death in the top 25 and was thus eliminated. Among the 6 young masters of Taijing City, the remaining 4 entered the top 13. In this round, Chu Hang's method was completely useless, because the remaining people in this round were all experts, and no one was willing to submit to the other. Of course, the competition was also extremely intense. Every battle was extremely shocking. In this round, because the battles between the examinees were extremely intense, it took a long time before the victor could be determined. Thus, this round was held for 3 whole days before it finally ended. In the end, other than Chu Yang, the remaining 6 people were the remaining 4 from Taijing City, Wu Chou, and Rui Zi. Of course, the top 7 would also need to draw lots. Of course, there would also be a free pass. Chu Yang repeated his old trick and was the first to rush up, but bang bang bang, 3 muffled sounds rang out as they bumped into each other. Surprisingly, it was Wu Chou, Rui Zi, and the others who had come up with Chu Yang's idea to fight over the lottery box. When they were about to reach the lottery box, the 3 of them bumped into each other. Dead face, are you suited to do such a thing? Rui Zi, you are a genius of Ru Yi sect. Can't you pay attention to your image? Haven't you seen the 6 young masters of Taijing City? They are all very elegant. Why can't you learn from them? Chu Yang was enraged and immediately scolded. These two fellas did not know that the 4 cards could be sensed, nor did they know how to sense them. They were purely here to ruin things. Wu Chou did not answer, but he was definitely not a fool. Rui Zi was different as he scolded. Bullshit, do you think I'm a fool? Rui Zi, do you mean to say that the 6 young masters of Taijing City are all fools? Huang Fu Xian and the other 3 did not go up to snatch because of their status. However, they also wished they could immediately rush up. However, the 4 of them restrained their desires. In the end, they were still scolded as fools. They felt extremely sullen and depressed. Chapter 2568. Bang, bang, bang. Chu Yang, Wu Chou, and Rui Zi fought together. Chu Yang's table manners were even more unsightly. In the end, he reached his hand into the lottery box first. When he confirmed that he had a 25% chance of drawing the vacant lot, he laughed heartily. As for Rui Zi, he could only stomp his foot and talk to himself. If he didn't care about his image, this vacant lot would have been his. Wu Chou actually had the same mentality. Compared to Chu Yang, he paid more attention to his image and missed a good opportunity. Everyone naturally had a huge reaction to this. Wow, the god of fraud's luck is simply heaven-defying. He actually drew the vacant lot consecutively. Without the god of fraud, there seems to be a lot less interesting. Anyway, the god of fraud is ridiculous again this time. Huang Fu Xian and the other 3's hearts were bleeding. The vacant lot that originally belonged to them was once again taken away by that country bumpkin. After the vacant lot was decided, the top 6 battles were quickly decided. Huang Fu Xian against Rui Zi, Xie Xiubua against Wang Lingyun, and Wu Chou against Shangguan Can. Among the 3 battles, Xie Xiubua and Wang Lingyun's battle was the internal battle of the 6 great young masters of Tai capital. The battle with the least suspense was between Wu Chou and Shangguan Can. Wu Chou's strength was obviously much stronger than the 6 great young masters. The fact that Wu Ce was split into 2 by his saber was the best proof. The first battle was between Huang Fu Xian and Rui Zi. The 2 of them fought brilliantly. All kinds of ultimate moves burst forth, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. The 2 of them fought until the sky darkened and the earth darkened. They were exhausted and covered in injuries. The 2 of them fought for an entire day and night before the victor was decided. Huang Fu Xian won in the end. In such a difficult battle, whether it was Huang Fu Xian and Rui Zi who were fighting or Shangguan Can and the others who were about to fight, only then did they realize how precious the vacant lot was. Especially Huang Fu Xian and the other 3. They were so regretful that their intestines turned green. Why did they care about their dignity? They were simply too stupid. The second battle was between Wu Chou and Shangguan Can. As expected, there wasn't much suspense in this battle. In the end, Shangguan Can was defeated. The civil war between Xie Xiubua and Wang Lingyun's 6 great young masters of Grand Capital also went on for days and nights. Bones and tendons were broken, and it was extremely tragic. In the end, both of them were seriously injured, and Xie Xiubua won by a small margin. At this point, the round had come to an end, and the top 4 had been decided. They were respectively Chu Yang, Wu Chou, Xie Xiubua, and Huang Fu Xian. The matchups for the top 4 were Chu Yang vs Xie Xiubua, Wu Chou vs Huang Fu Xian. Chu Yang and Xie Xiubua were the first to fight. On the arena, Xie Xiubua's countenance was pale and practically didn't have the slightest trace of blood. Even though he'd won in the fierce battle with Wang Lingyun, it could be said that he'd suffered an extremely heavy injury, and it was impossible for him to fully recover without a year or so. It could be said that he would definitely lose against Chu Yang. Therefore, Xie Xiubua didn't plan to fight with Chu Yang from the start. He changed his method and spoke first. "Country bumpkin, I'm seriously injured now. Let's change the way of the battle. Do you dare? If I don't dare, it means that I don't have confidence and have lost my drive. Even if I enter the finals, I'll definitely lose, right?" Xie Xiubua was slightly stunned. Chu Yang sneered. "You should know that this is Chu Hang mode. So, you don't dare. From the beginning, the two of them had engaged in an intense battle of words. This battle could only be like this. After all, Xieshobua was seriously injured, so how could he be a match for Chu Yang? Did I say that I don't dare? Chu Yang smiled. Show me what you've got. It's very simple. Chapter 2569. 100,000 feet long Great Tao. Before this, he and Wang Lingyun knew each other very well. During the battle, he did not reveal his Great Tao. Now that he revealed it, it immediately caused an uproar. Oh my God, 100,000 feet long Great Tao. Yang Qingsha's 2,000 feet long Great Tao is nothing in front of such a Great Tao. Amazing, this is simply too amazing. As expected of the famous 6 great young masters of Tai capital, facing 100,000 feet long Great Tao, everyone seemed to only be left with exclamations and sighs. There was probably nothing else. 100,000 feet long Great Tao. Chu Yang was also slightly startled in his heart. He frowned. Previously, during the battle between Xieshobua and Wang Lingyun, he had sensed Xieshobua's strength and thought that Xieshobua's Great Tao was probably not just 2,000 feet long. However, when he truly confirmed it, he could not help but be shocked. The limit of my extended Great Tao should only be 50,000 feet long. It did not matter if others were strong, but the key was that he was weak. This was troublesome. Chu Yang used the Destiny Twins and the Divine Cauldron to stand above the Heavenly Tao. Not only did his horizons widen, but he also used the Heavenly Tao to allow the Great Tao on his body to grow crazily. He had even grasped many Great Taos and was able to display them. However, although he had grasped many Great Taos, they were not long enough. They definitely could not reach 100,000 feet long. Country bumpkin, it's enough that your Great Tao has defeated mine. Xieshobua keenly captured the subtle changes in Chu Yang's expression and could not help but mock and sneer. You seem to be sure that you've won, right? Chu Yang was also very sharp. How could he not notice the contempt and disdain that Xieshobua had instantly expressed? I'm sure that I've won, Xieshobua said proudly and said with extreme certainty. Aren't you afraid of being slapped in the face? Chu Yang laughed. He was also slightly angry. This thing that had been heavily injured actually wanted to use these little tricks to defeat his confidence and humiliate him. It was simply wishful thinking. You can start your performance. Xieshobua was extremely playful. She actually imitated Chu Yang's tone and said the words that Chu Yang often used. Interesting. With a thought in Chu Yang's mind, a loud and clear dragon's roar came from his body. In an instant, a huge dragon appeared from the void. When it unfolded, it was 50,000 feet long. Ha ha. Xieshobua immediately laughed. Country bumpkin, is this how you slap my face? Many gazes were focused on this scene. At this moment, Huangfu Xian also laughed contemptuously. A great path that was only 50,000 feet long was not worth mentioning. Wu Chou only coldly watched all of this without saying a word. There was absolutely no other expression on his face. The Great Tao of Pit Deity is only 50,000 feet long. This time, I'm afraid it's going to be very bad. 50,000 feet is actually very shocking. After all, the Pit God is only at the peak of the Nirvana realm. Don't jump to conclusions too early. Don't you feel that the God of cheating is obviously digging a hole? Faced with Xieshobua's sharp mockery, Chu Yang simply smiled coldly and said, The Great Tao that I have right now is indeed only 50,000 meters long, but you think you have one just because of that. Keep your eyes sharp and watch carefully. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As soon as Chu Yang's voice fell, his body began to vibrate at a certain frequency. Circles of light waves were constantly surging out. At this time, in silence, his whole body was shining. In the blink of an eye, he became bright and translucent. He was like an eternal divine sun, shining with infinite light. Buzz, buzz. Chapter 2570. Resonance. It was the same frequency. The frequency of Chu Yang's physical body was completely synchronized with the frequency of heaven and earth. Then, at a certain moment, Chu Yang's flesh shell suddenly blurred, as if it had been disintegrated into rays of light by the vibration. However, it was only for a moment, and soon his physical body appeared again. The vibration of the flesh shell and the vibration of heaven and earth completely disappeared at this time. At the same time, when Chu Yang appeared in front of everyone again, everyone felt that he was completely different from before, but they couldn't tell what it was. It seemed that he had merged with heaven and earth. He was heaven, he was earth, and heaven and earth was him. A saint-level array master. At this time, Chu Yang finally used his cultivation of array formations. Previously, when he stood on the wind gap of the heavenly path and looked at the magnificent scene, it was actually the most beneficial for his cultivation of array formations. This was because array masters used the power of heaven and earth to set up arrays to kill enemies or achieve their own goals. Saint-level array masters didn't need to condense the great path, they only needed to comprehend heaven and earth. Therefore, although Chu Yang was already a saint-level array master, his cultivation of array formations was naturally not restrained. After capturing the changes of the heavenly path, he could freely grow. A saint-level array master. God, the god of fraud, is actually a saint-level array master. The god of fraud hid it so well. He really did set up a trap. This time, Xieshobua fell into his trap without hesitation. He must be screwed. Many people saw it, so how could Xieshobua not see it? He couldn't help but be shocked and exclaimed, "A saint-level array master." Compared to the saint realm, a saint-level array master was more difficult to reach and cultivate. He never thought that Chu Yang actually had such an identity and was actually already a saint-level array master. No wonder this bastard dares to be so arrogant when he's only in the nirvana realm. Huang Fu Xian's eyes surged with cold light. His aura was extremely gloomy, and his mood was extremely bad. This was because he originally had the advantage of realm, but Chu Yang's identity as a saint-level array master instantly erased all the differences. "Dao, come." Chu Yang raised his head and waved his hand. Immediately, a loud and clear dragon roar resounded in the world. Then, a great path that was 50,000 feet long appeared. Then, he used his original Great Dao as one seal, and the Great Dao that was activated by heaven and earth as another seal. He used the simplest method to connect the two Great Daos together. In an instant, the Great Dao became tens of thousands of feet long. If he was willing, he could summon a Great Dao that was tens of thousands of feet long, but he didn't want to reveal it. "How do you feel? Do you think I have the ability to slap your face now?" After Chu Yang was done, he stopped and looked at Xieshobua with a mocking smile. This is only a Great Dao that is 100,000 feet long. You've surpassed me." Xieshobua refused to admit her mistake. How could he admit defeat? If he admitted defeat, he would be the first of the 6 great young masters to admit defeat to a country bumpkin like Chu Yang. He could not bear such humiliation. "You should also wear a new emperor's outfit." Chu Yang smiled even more happily. When he said that, blood rushed to Xieshobua's face. At this moment, Xieshobua almost lost her mind. She said in a sinister voice, "Bastard, can't you talk about other things after you defeat me? Based on what you said, you still doubt that I have the ability to slap your face, right?" Chu Yang laughed out loud. "I like it when you're stubborn. I'll make sure you'll be satisfied later." After a pause, he said to everyone, "There's a high-energy warning ahead. Everyone, be careful. Don't say that I didn't warn you." Chapter 2571. Thai capital city, martial examination arena. It was close to noon and there were no clouds in the sky. It was clear and lofty. The scorching sun hung high in the sky and the sunlight shone down on the earth. The entire world was like a steamer and there seemed to be white steam coming out of it. The poisonous sunlight was like the scorching sun mocking all living beings. However, no one in the martial examination arena seemed to be able to detect the scorching sun's mockery. Hence, the scorching sun's mockery became even more bitter. "I like it when you're stubbornly holding on." What a boring sentence. Who wants to slap who in the face? This was such a boring thing. However, those humans seemed to be enjoying it. Especially that human called Chu Yang. He looked like a fool. His opponent seemed even more hopeless. The world became even hotter. On the arena, Chu Yang and Xieshobua's battle continued. I'll borrow 500 more from the heavens. Chu Yang seemed to be using an extremely passionate method to cover up his lack of strength. His face seemed to have turned red because he was using all his strength. He seemed to be summoning Tao and waving it away. With just this roar, there was a white light that came out of nowhere and appeared in mid-air. However, it was only a short 10 feet long. How could there be 500 of them? The 500 feet long Tao that everyone was looking forward to was nowhere to be seen. However, this was already enough to make Xiaobuo's face turn ugly. He even thought of a possibility he was going to be humiliated by this 10 feet long Tao. Indeed, when the 10 feet long Tao connected with Chu Yang's 10,000 feet long Tao, he only heard Chu Yang sneering, "This thing, how about my 500 Tao? It's not long, it's only 10 feet long. How do you feel? Does it feel good? As one of the 6 great young masters of Tai capital city, you actually lost to this 10 feet long Tao. How are you going to face others?" Xiaobuo's blood rushed to his face. He said stiffly, "You've won the battle of Tao. However, your Tao is only 10 feet longer than mine. It doesn't mean that you're my opponent." For example, he was afraid that Chu Yang would expand his great Tao again, so he spoke quickly and acted quickly. Suddenly, a surge of immortal qi surged out of his body. Then, 2 golden threads floated out from his eyes like tentacles. The state of an immortal. He had already used it when Huangfu Xian was fighting with others. Chu Yang already knew about it, so there was no need to hide it. Is that enough? The immortal state, or a state similar to the immortal state, was a kind of benchmark. If one did not have it, they would not be qualified. Chu Yang did not have the qualifications. His strength was naturally not as good as Xiaobuo's. He couldn't help but laugh coldly in his heart. "So you're planning to compete with me in this?" However, he had to admit that no matter if it was the immortal state, scholar state, or shaman state, all of them represented obtaining the inheritance of an era that existed in the past, and it was extremely shocking. Without a counterattack, they were no match for him at all. "You're saying that I used a meter-long great Tao to defeat you and humiliate you? I've shot myself in the foot, right? Isn't that so? Where's your IQ?" Xiaobuo choked. He clenched his teeth so hard that they almost broke. How could he not know that the country bumpkin in front of him already knew that he had the immortal state? Since the country bumpkin thought of it, he would naturally be able to deal with it. Therefore, he used this to humiliate Chu Yang. He was simply an idiot. "Humph." He snorted and said coldly, "You're just a country bumpkin. Am I going too far by bullying you?" Chapter 2572. In the end, he added, "I'll say this again. I like the way you put on a strong front, even though I know that you're trying your best to expose my abilities so that others can take advantage of me." Chu Yang was well aware of Xiaobuo's thoughts. Xiaobuo would allow everyone to obtain first place in this combat examination except for one person, and that person was Chu Yang. Swoosh. Suddenly, great darkness descended on the arena, enveloping Chu Yang and even forming the appearance of a secret chamber. Song Tangming. Chu Yang used the darkness to conceal himself. He was about to activate his divine qi and enter the state of a celestial when a voice that sounded as if he had discovered a new continent immediately barged into his ears. He immediately cursed inwardly, "Rui Zi, are you born in the year of the dog? I've already concealed myself so much, yet you can still smell me. That bastard is spouting nonsense." Rui Zi had wanted to refute Chu Yang, but the strange movement of the purple qi and divine qi in his body had completely disappeared. He did not have absolute confidence, so he did not speak again. However, his shout had given everyone quite a shock. When Xiaobuo, who was in the arena, heard the 3 words Song Tangming, his expression changed drastically with a swoosh. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Xiaobuo was truly shocked. There were many people like him, such as Huangfu Xian, Shangguan Can, and even Wu Chou. This was because Song Tangming's reputation was really too great. He had actually managed to control both the state of a celestial and a scholar. In just a short period of time, the darkness formed by Chu Yang's activation of the laws disappeared, and he once again appeared before everyone. Purple qi circled around him, and there seemed to be purple tentacles floating out from his pupils. The state of a celestial. You still dare to say that you're not Song Tangming? Ruizi's voice charged out again at this moment. It was like a magnificent army barging into everyone's ears and charging into their hearts, causing many people to be greatly alarmed. Could it be that Chu Yang was really Song Tangming? Ruizi once fought a great battle with Song Tangming. His words should be very credible. This thought caused many people to be even more shocked. Many people could not help but start discussing. Could that Chu Yang really be Song Tangming? It can't be. The god of deception is Song Tangming. If it was Song Tangming, then it would really explode. Absolutely. Kenshin is amazing, Song Tangming is also amazing. When the two of them are put together, they are very, very amazing. Although I don't know what I'm saying, I just feel that this matter is serious. The expressions of Shangguan Kan and the others changed drastically. That bastard, what are you talking about? Chu Yang refused to admit it and said narcissistically, is Song Tangming's celestial state as handsome as me? Sure. Many people's gazes fell on Ruizi. Under the great pressure of the group, he could not help but become cautious and did not speak again. However, his appearance conveyed a message to everyone. He was not very confident. Therefore, many people could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. If Chu Yang was Song Tangming, then it was simply unimaginable. Chu Yang was amazing in the literary path, and Song Tangming was amazing in the martial path. The combination of the two was simply unparalleled in literary and martial arts. Who could compare to them? Country bumpkin, you have the state of a celestial, and I also have the state of a celestial. Your great Tao is only 10 feet longer than mine. If we fight, I don't necessarily lose to you. Xie Xiaobo saw Chu Yang's celestial state and said again, if that's all you have, I'm afraid it won't be convincing if you say you can defeat me. Chapter 2573. That's enough. Why would I reveal such an identity? He made up his mind and immediately smiled at Xie Xiaobo. You're still not convinced, are you? I'll make you convinced. Rumble. He stopped hiding and directly activated the righteous energy in his body. Instantly, rumbling sounds came from his body as if there was a long river of history surging within. Then, he entered the Confucian state. Once the Confucian state appeared, Ruizi confirmed it and said angrily, Song Tangming, you bastard. You're still not admitting that you're Song Tangming. Chu Yang glared at him from the arena and cursed, you bastard, you're talking nonsense again, bullshit. Ruizi was very agitated. Other than Song Tangming, who else in this world can activate the Confucian state? Only Song Tangming has comprehended the righteous energy. If I say I'm not, then I'm not. Go to the side. Can't you see that I'm busy? Chu Yang turned around and put his hands on his hips. He said to Xie Xiaobo roguishly, you're convinced? Xie Xiaobo's eyes were fixed on Chu Yang. She was extremely shocked in her heart. Is this country bumpkin really Song Tangming? He did not understand the righteous energy and the Confucian state, but with his immortal state, he could sense the strange phenomena of writing, calligraphy, and paintings from Chu Yang. Every one of these proved that the country bumpkin in front of him was Song Tangming. He confirmed it but did not say it out loud. He admitted defeat very quickly. I admit defeat. Whoosh. He directly flew down the arena and left immediately as if he was running for his life. You bastard, why are you running so fast? I haven't humiliated you yet. Why was Xie Xiaobo running so fast? If he did not run, he would be facing a storm of humiliation from that country bumpkin. If he did not run, he would be a fool. I'm so angry. Because of this, I've decided to announce an extremely shocking piece of news here. I'm Song Tangming. Boom. His words shocked the heavens. The crowd immediately boiled over and clamored. Damn, the god of deceit is actually Song Tangming. This is too unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's actually Song Tangming. If Chu Yang and Song Tangming were the same person, then they would be invincible. How is that possible? Bang! Chu Yang stomped his foot on the ring and put his hands on his hips. Song Tangming is here. Waha! Huang Fuxian was the most shocked. If he defeated Wu Chou, his opponent in the finals would be Chu Yang. If Chu Yang was Song Tangming, It would be even more difficult for him to defeat Chu Yang if he was seriously injured before the fight even began. He is actually Song Tangming. At this moment, Wu Chou's deadpan face was actually filled with shock. One could imagine how shocked the others were because of this. In fact, there was no need to talk about the others. At this time, Shangguan Kan was completely dumbfounded. If he had known that Chu Yang was Song Tangming, he wouldn't have looked down on him so much from the very beginning. He wouldn't have set up such a simple test and let this bastard use him to show off. Waha, Song Tangming is here. What do you think? Amidst the clamor, Chu Yang laughed wildly. Immediately, the crowd could not help but fall silent. They were very speechless. That thing on the ring, who was trying to hide it just now, was trying to shout that he was Song Tangming now. He was simply crazy. Song Tangming, why are you so proud of yourself? You didn't even dare to admit it just now, but now you're showing off. You're really shameless. Rui Zi was really unhappy. He was very, very unhappy when he saw this bastard. Bullshit. Chu Yang glared at him. When have I ever denied it? You still have the nerve to say that. That bastard is talking nonsense. Don't you know that you can explain it this way? That bastard, what kind of truth are you talking about? This way of explaining it. Many people were completely convinced by Chu Yang. It seemed that Chu Yang was still farsighted and reasonable. Chapter 2574. The fact that Chu Yang was Song Tangming shocked the crowd and made them unable to calm down for a long time. Naturally, Chu Yang won the first round of the quarterfinals. The second round would be held immediately, Wu Chou versus Huang Fuxian. Since Chu Yang entered the top 25, he had either won a bye or won easily. Until now, he had not lost a single strand of hair. This was terrible news for Wu Chou and Huang Fuxian. Therefore, no matter who won this round, they would be at a disadvantage when facing Chu Yang, who had been conserving his strength. Since Wu Chou had thought of it, Huang Fuxian naturally also thought of it. A battle of life and death. This was Wu Chou's solution. Huang Fuxian's pupils suddenly shrank, and the image of Wu Ce being cut in half by Wu Chou immediately appeared in his mind. He definitely did not want to end up like Wu Ce, but how could he admit defeat? You should know that my proposal is not bad. Wu Chou said emotionlessly. Your proposal is not bad. This was a way to ensure that one of them would enter the finals in the best condition. Huang Fuxian almost had to admit that. It's your choice. Hearing Wu Chou's voice, Huang Fuxian fell into a dilemma and was completely silent. The entire place fell silent. It was so quiet that there was almost no sound at all. This battle would determine who would enter the finals and who would become Chu Yang's opponent. Would it be Wu Chou or Huang Fuxian? Many people naturally realized that Wu Chou and Huang Fuxian would have to fight fiercely to determine the winner. Then, they would have to face Chu Yang in the finals. That was because Chu Yang was Song Tangming. There was no need to verify Song Tangming's strength. Just the fact that he had mastered the state of immortality and the state of Confucianism was extremely terrifying. There were definitely not many people who could do this, at least not among the 6 young masters of Taijing City. Chu Yang did not care much about this. This was the last battle, and he had no more worries. At the same time, he had a great advantage, and his advantage could not be more obvious. I admit defeat. Suddenly, Huang Fuxian's voice came from the arena, which stunned everyone. At this moment, Chu Yang was also slightly stunned. To be honest, he was too surprised. Huang Fuxian was such a proud person. How could he admit defeat just like that? I hope you won't disappoint me, Huang Fuxian said coldly to Wu Chou. Wu Chou's expression did not change at all. He was still as cold as ever as he said, if you are not convinced, why don't you try? Very domineering. It was not up to Huang Fuxian to decide what Wu Chou would do, and he would not follow Huang Fuxian's wishes. He, Wu Chou, only knew how to do his own thing. Huang Fuxian understood what Wu Chou meant. He wanted to kill Chu Yang and humiliate Chu Yang, but Wu Chou might not do the same. He wasn't stupid, and it was best not to treat his surrender as a form of charity. Wu Chou definitely didn't win by begging, I admit defeat. But in the end, Huang Fuxian still admitted defeat. Wu Chou was the most shocking. If Wu Chou had not spoken, Huang Fuxian would not have seen Wu Chou. Of course, he was even more certain that he would be defeated by Wu Chou, or even killed. Therefore, his choice was very easy. Semifinals, Wu Chou vs Huang Fuxian. Wu Chou wins. When Huang Fuxian stepped down from the arena, the referee announced the result. At this point, the 6 great gentlemen of Taijing City were all defeated. No one could enter the finals. The ones who entered the finals were Chu Yang and Wu Chou. Before the imperial martial examination, no one could have imagined such a result. This year's imperial examination was really strange and unpredictable. It was very shocking. In this way, the finals will be between Chu Yang and Wu Chou. The champion will also be decided between the two of them. Wu Chou vs Chu Yang. What kind of battle will this be? Wu Chou killed Wu Ce with 1 strike, but Chu Yang is also very shocking. He is actually Song Tangming from the Saint King College. Chapter 2575. The crowd couldn't help but discuss among themselves, trying to determine if Wu Chou or Chu Yang would win in the end. However, once they started discussing, they realized that it was impossible to determine. Both of them were too strong. Most people were looking forward to the battle between the two of them. Needless to say, Rui Zi, Huang Fuxian, Xie Xiaobo, and the others, their gazes were already fixed on the arena. Candidate, Chu Yang from the Eastern Wilderness, please come to the arena. When the referee's voice rang out, everyone knew that the finals were about to begin, and the crowd became even more clamorous. Candidate, Wu Chou, please come to the arena. Swoosh swoosh. The referee's voice rang out once again, and Chu Yang and Wu Chou both flew onto the arena at the same time. When they landed on the arena, they didn't make any sound, as if they were willow catkins that floated down. Now, I officially announce that the finals of this year's imperial examination officially begins. The referee seemed to be affected by the atmosphere of the crowd, and when he announced the start of the finals, his voice was filled with excitement and anticipation. A battle like this might be recorded in the annals of Taijing City's history. Boom. The atmosphere of the crowd seemed to have reached its peak in an instant, and the roars of the mountains and the seas shook the heavens and the earth. It was as if everyone was looking forward to it, but the arena was completely silent, and everyone immediately fell silent. Whoosh. The sweltering martial arts practice field had been held for so many days, but it seemed that there had never been such a strong wind. However, it suddenly appeared at this time, and it was so strong that it caused people's sleeves to flutter and their long hair to flutter. It made people feel incomparably comfortable in the sweltering heat. Rumble. Thunder suddenly rumbled in the sky, and an extremely thick layer of dark clouds appeared. It was as if it wasn't just the wind that couldn't stand the silence, the thunder and dark clouds couldn't stand it either, and they came as well. Very soon, the rain would also come, as if the rain definitely didn't want to miss such a great battle. On the arena, Chu Yang and Wu Chou faced each other. Chu Yang was originally in a very relaxed mood, but as soon as he went up on stage, his relaxed mood completely disappeared. His nerves could not help but tense up. Wu Chou gave him a great deal of pressure. He could feel Wu Chou's burning desire to fight, so much so that his usually cold and emotionless face actually became gentle and radiant. That pair of motionless eyes seemed to have completely come alive at this moment. They were as deep as the starry sky, as if they were rotating on their own, slowly rotating like a celestial body. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that he had felt Wu Chou's blade, the blade that had cut Wu Ce in half. At this moment, the saber had completely locked onto Chu Yang. It was as if it could not wait to be unsheathed. Fanatical, incomparably fanatical battle intent. Wu Chou treated this battle as a battle to seek the Tao. Sir, why do you always meet such fanatics? Chu Yang could not help but laugh bitterly in his heart. The Wu Chou in front of him was very similar to Xiao Qiu Yu in the God's world. The only difference was that one used a saber, while the other used a sword. As the two silently faced each other, an indescribable aura and the aura of the great Tao had already intertwined and collided with each other, causing the void above the arena to faintly distort. When that kind of aura collided and filled the entire arena, everyone's heart could not help but skip a beat. Immediately, they felt as if there was a huge rock pressing down on their chests, and they felt as if they could not breathe. Everyone could not help but hold their breaths, waiting for such a battle to begin. A battle of life and death. On the arena, there was finally movement, but the slight movement was as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting, shocking everyone. Is there a need for this? Chu Yang's smile was uglier than crying. He could not understand Wu Chou's blade at all, and he did not want to be cut in half by Wu Chou's blade. Chapter 2576. Yes. In the battle of seeking the Tao, if one still had to worry about life and death, if one's hands and feet were tied, and if one did not fully unleash one's full strength, how could one seek the Tao? To seek the Tao, one needed to be sincere. At least, that was what Wu Chou thought. Bastard Wu Chou, do I have a grudge against you? I just want to make a name for myself so that I can meet my mother-in-law. Do you have to be like this? Chu Yang was already cursing in his heart, and he fully activated the 3-character classic. However, it was useless. In the process of waiting for his answer, Wu Chou's aura rose sharply and became more and more shocking. Bang, bang, bang. His heart beat violently, and his eyelids twitched wildly. He sensed great danger, and he even smelled the scent of death. I admit defeat. After a few moments of hesitation, Chu Yang said these 3 words with difficulty. He did not want to die, nor did he want Wu Chou to die. There was no need to go to this step at all. It was not that he did not know the difficulty of seeking the Tao, nor was it that he did not dare to face the dangers, but he felt that it was not worth it. He did not need to go to this step. There was an endless and wide path in front of him, and he did not even have enough time to comprehend it. He did not need to seek the Tao. Do you think I care who the Imperial Examination Champion is? Wu Chou's expression did not change at all, and he said indifferently, even if you admit defeat, I will still attack. This battle was absolutely unavoidable. Wu Chou's meaning was very clear, and it made the bitter smile on Chu Yang's face even more. Then, he shouted at the top of his lungs, Bastard, why are all the dead faces I meet like this? Is it wrong for me to be afraid of death? His spittle flew everywhere, and he was very agitated. When the crowd saw this scene, they could not help but look at each other. Chu Yang actually said that he was afraid of death, and he seemed to hate this kind of battle very much. You should calm your mind. Calm your bullshit. Chu Yang roared. Do I need to calm my mind to deal with a dead face like you? I can deal with you dead faces with a raise of my hand. I believe you. Wu Chou was about to draw his saber, scaring Chu Yang. He hastily shouted, You believe my fart, this marshal is talking fart. You really don't need to calm down when facing me. Bullshit, why don't I need to calm my mind? Facing Wu Chou, Chu Yang naturally had to maintain his best condition. Otherwise, he would really be split in half and become the next Wu Ce. At that time, he had no place to cry. As he spoke, he was about to sit down cross-legged and settle his mind. He shook off all his frivolity and impulsiveness, and only by calming his mind would he be able to face Wu Chou with all his might. However, at this moment, Wu Chou made his move. Wu Chou's left hand, which was gripping the handle of the knife, suddenly exerted force. Then, Chu Yang saw that the knife was already unsheathed. Half of the blade was black, the other half was blood red. Wu Chou unsheathed his saber and hacked down toward Chu Yang's midline. This saber was extremely fast. It was as if the saber was still in the scabbard, and it was already hacking at him. Chu Yang was shocked. His nerves were like a drawn bow, and in an instant, they were pulled into a full moon. He was completely taut, and he could not care about anything else. In the past, in such a situation, he would definitely say a few words of nonsense. However, at this time, he did not have such an opportunity, nor did he have the ability. Chapter 2577. The great danger made Chu Yang feel slightly panicked. However, his heart calmed down completely in an instant. In that instant, everyone in the martial arts practice field disappeared from his eyes, and the martial arts practice field disappeared completely as well. The earth and the sky had disappeared. Everything had disappeared. In his eyes, there was only Wu Chou's saber. Wu Chou's saber was black and blood-colored. Time seemed to have been stretched infinitely at this moment. Chu Yang felt a lot of things. He seemed to see Wu Chou practicing the saber day after day, year after year, without slacking off for a moment. Not only did Wu Chou want to practice, but he also wanted to comprehend. Regarding every movement of the saber, he would ponder, study, practice, confirm, and then repeat it over and over again. He seemed to have studied every movement thousands of times, striving for perfection, and reaching the pinnacle. Chu Yang also saw a great Tao, an extremely sharp great Tao. It was the great Tao of the saber. This great Tao of the saber was like a path to heaven. If one followed it, they would suddenly enter a strange world and an epoch. The saber world. The saber epoch. Not only did Wu Chou obtain the inheritance of the witchcraft epoch, but he also obtained the inheritance of the saber epoch. However, there was nothing else in this saber, only the saber. Other than the saber, there was only the saber. In the end, the saber epoch disappeared. The saber world disappeared. The saber great Tao disappeared. Everything disappeared. In Chu Yang's eyes, there was only one saber left. It was a saber without any black or blood-colored saber. This was an ordinary saber used to chop things, cut things, and so on. Wu Chou, who held this saber, seemed to have no cultivation at all at this moment. The most essential aspect of the saber was revealed. The saber was just a tool. Its purpose was to destroy and injure in order to achieve a certain goal. The wound of the saber. This was the same as the wound of the sword. In a sense, the saber was a sword. Chu Yang had long since comprehended the sword wound. He had even comprehended the other side of the sword wound. No injury. Of course, Wu Chou had also comprehended this, and his comprehension was much deeper than Chu Yang's. Although both of them had comprehended the essence of the saber, Chu Yang was still very superficial, as if he was just an illiterate who had just learned how to read big words, while Wu Chou was already a top scorer. When a scholar meets a soldier, there is no way to reason with him. However, even if Chu Yang was a soldier, Wu Chou was definitely not an elementary scholar, but a duke who controlled the imperial court. This wouldn't work, but how could he avoid it? Chu Yang was almost in a hopeless situation, but at this time, he suddenly thought of a solution. He had just learned to read big, so he could totally ask Wu Chou, the top scholar, for guidance. There is a limit to life, and there is no limit to knowledge. Although Wu Chou was a scholar, there were still some words that he did not understand or even recognize. Perhaps because he was illiterate, he had written them wrongly, so Wu Chou could not recognize them at all. It was too difficult to take out a random word to ask for guidance, and it just so happened that the top scholar did not understand. Therefore, one word was definitely not enough, so he could only take out all the words he did not recognize to make things difficult for Wu Chou, the top scholar. Chu Yang finally found a solution. His comprehension of the wound of the saber was not as good as Wu Chou's, but he could use countless saber wounds to counteract it. It was like a piece of paper that could be cut easily, but when many pieces of paper were stacked together, it would not be so easy. This was not enough. Chu Yang also put in some effort on the no injury of the saber. And when he found a solution, his contradictory sword was also unsheathed. The moment the contradictory sword was unsheathed, it instantly turned into a saber and went up to meet the attack. All this seemed very long in Chu Yang's perception, but in reality, it was only a moment. Chapter 2578. At this moment, seeing such a scene, everyone couldn't help but feel nervous. Their hearts were beating rapidly. The scene of Wu Ce being split into two by Wu Chou jumped out at this moment. Would Chu Yang become the next Wu Ce? Could Chu Yang block such a blade? No one knew. Clang. Chu Yang's saber blocked Wu Chou's saber with a clang sound. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim, he blocked it. However, what they didn't know was how many blades Chu Yang had used to block Wu Chou's blade, and how he had stacked up tiny bits of energy to block it. However, even so, it wasn't enough. Chu Yang's time was too short. He couldn't accumulate enough energy to block such a blade. Fortunately, He had used the invincible blade at the same time. The invincible blade was another kind of blade essence. Although Chu Yang's invincible blade couldn't be compared to Wu Chou's blade, he had found another way, the Great Harmony Sutra. If Chu Yang was Wu Chou, why would Wu Chou / Chu Yang? Killing me was equivalent to killing you. Of course, he wouldn't attack again. Naturally, he wouldn't be injured. Only the Great Harmony Sutra could accomplish this. All of this took a long time to describe, but it all happened in an instant. No one knew how many things had happened in this period of time, and no one knew what danger Chu Yang had just experienced. Even Wu Chou was the same. Wu Chou knew Chu Yang's first way of blocking, but he didn't understand the second way. Wu Chou's blade didn't succeed. His blade disappeared instantly and returned to the scabbard. Chu Yang's blade was the same. You really don't need to calm your mind. The expression on Wu Chou's cold face became richer. Other than shock and surprise, there were many other emotions. However, other than Wu Chou himself, no one could read them. Chu Yang didn't want to speak. He had almost died, but he still said, "Did you have any enlightenment just now?" "Yes, an earth-shattering enlightenment. You can't comprehend anything." Chu Yang could not figure out what Wu Chou had learned. Wu Chou's level of Saber Dao was far superior to his, and he had been lucky enough to withstand it. What could Wu Chou have learned from listening to such an inferior method? "Can you tell me the truth?" "I'm telling the truth." Chu Yang didn't say anything else. He wasn't Wu Chou, so how could he be sure that Wu Chou didn't have any great enlightenment? Since Wu Chou said so, then so be it. The entire place was silent. Almost no one was able to see through the mystery behind this exchange between Chu Yang and Wu Chou. Even Huang Fu Xian, Xie Xiubua, and the others were unable to see through it. Huang Fu Xian and the others were no different from ordinary people. They did not feel anything at all. They didn't know exactly what it was, but they knew that it was very powerful and terrifying. This kind of Wu Chou, this kind of Chu Yang, made them incomparably fearful. If any one of them went up, they would have already been chopped to death by Wu Chou's saber. The decisive battle was between Wu Chou and Chu Yang. This was truly deserved. These two people were the two strongest people in the Imperial Martial Examination this time. "I have 3 sabers. This is the first one." Hearing Wu Chou's voice, Chu Yang couldn't help but frown. The first saber was already so terrifying. What about the second and third saber? He couldn't imagine it, but at this moment, he had nowhere to run. He could only face it head-on. This battle was probably the most thrilling and difficult battle that Chu Yang had ever fought in his life. Silently, Wu Chou struck out with his saber again. Fast, it was still extremely fast, so fast that it couldn't be seen. The saber was still equally black and blood-red. This saber appeared above Chu Yang's head again, slashing down along the midline of his body. Chapter 2579. Not only that, but Chu Yang also saw an endless amount of blood and evil. He felt an endless amount of resentment that was pervasive and was about to drown him and take effect on his body. There were 2 branches of the Sorcerer Dao, Jiyu Arts and Curse Arts. It could also be said that they were the Jiyu Dao and Curse Dao. These 2 were just 2 branches of the Sorcerer Dao. This saber strike also contained the main branch of the Sorcerer Dao, an extremely majestic power. Sorcerers, true sorcerers, disdained Jiyu Arts and Curse Arts. They were the strongest people in the world and could control fate. They could live forever and were not weaker than immortals. Although the Sorcerer Dao and the Immortal Dao were different Daos, they ultimately led to the same destination. Wu Chou's saber strike contained these 3 shocking powers. It was as if the entire sorcerer epoch had condensed into this saber and chopped at Xiao Chen. Phew! Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. The first saber strike was actually more dangerous than the second. Xiao Chen's saber was also unsheathed. It was also silent and extremely fast. This saber strike also split the entire sorcerer epoch apart. Dang! Xiao Chen was no match for Wu Chou. A great force pressed down on him, pushing him back dozens of steps in the arena before he managed to stop himself. Wu Chou did not chase after such a great opportunity. This was because he clearly knew the result of this saber strike. He also knew that Chu Yang had a better way to deal with it. For example, the Confucian Tao was not as good as the immortal Tao. However, Chu Yang used his shallow understanding of the sorcerer Tao to clash head-on with Wu Chou. Hence, it was not surprising that Wu Chou could suppress Chu Yang. Instead, Wu Chou admired Chu Yang's confidence and courage. Chu Yang is at a disadvantage. It looks like he is going to lose. Do you understand? Don't speak nonsense. Just watch and stop moving your mouth. Who is Chu Yang? He is known as the god of pits. Maybe he is digging a pit again. Even at this time, he still has the mood to be so carefree. That is hard to say. How can I imagine someone like the god of pits? Aren't you making things difficult for me? The audience below the stage watched the battle in a thrilling and nervous manner. Their palms were sweating, but they were also confused. They had no idea what the two people on the stage were doing. Rui Zi, Huangfu Xian, and the others could generally understand the second strike, but they did not know the exact details. They only knew that this was a clash of the essence of two epochs, and that Chu Yang was completely at a disadvantage. His understanding of the immortal Tao is not deep enough, but his understanding of the Confucian Tao should be deep enough. He shouldn't be at a disadvantage, right? Rui Zi had a certain understanding of Chu Yang. At this moment, he was a little perplexed. In the end, he guessed that Chu Yang's immortal Tao epoch had met Wu Chou's witchcraft epoch, which had led to this. The third slash is definitely different from the second. On the arena, Chu Yang and Wu Chou had long ignored their surroundings. They were unaware of everything that was happening around them. Wu Chou was reminding Chu Yang. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart sank again. He naturally understood that Wu Chou's third slash would be extremely terrifying. Not to mention the second slash, even the first slash would be far inferior. However, what kind of saber technique would the third slash be? I understand. It's good that you understand. At first, everyone was expecting Chu Yang to say a few more words. However, he only replied with one sentence and did not say anything else. On the other hand, Wu Chou spoke a few more words than Chu Yang. Are you ready? I'm going to strike. Chu Yang did not reply, but Wu Chou spoke again. This was naturally another reminder to Chu Yang, telling him clearly how terrifying the third slash would be. Many people also sensed that Chu Yang might die in the third slash and be split into two halves. Therefore, they could not help but hold their breaths and wait without blinking. Chapter 2580. Chu Yang was waiting for the third slash. Everyone was waiting for the third slash. Wu Chou was also waiting. Naturally, he was not waiting for the third slash, but for how Chu Yang would deal with it. To be precise, he was looking forward to it. He believed that Chu Yang would definitely be able to withstand the third slash. He did not know where Chu Yang's confidence came from, but he believed in his own intuition. Thump thump thump, thump thump thump. At this moment, the world was extremely quiet for Chu Yang. He could clearly hear the sound of his own heartbeat. Every heartbeat seemed to be the footsteps of the Grim Reaper walking towards him, and his heartbeat seemed to be the footsteps of the Grim Reaper. He had thought of other methods, such as switching from defense to offense and taking the initiative to attack Wu Chou. This way, it would be easy for Wu Chou to deliver the third slash. However, he instantly gave up on this idea. Wu Chou regarded this battle as a battle to seek the Tao. He had already disregarded life and death. Even if Chu Yang had done so, Wu Chou would not have paid any attention to him. He would have continued to slash out his third saber strike. Indiscriminate destruction. It was not that Wu Chou had not used this method before, and Wu Ce had died in this way. What was impossible for him to use it again? Therefore, if Chu Yang tried to do this, if he wavered in the slightest during this process, he would become the next Wu Ce. And if he chose to indiscriminate destruction, either he or Wu Chou would die, or both of them would die. Such an outcome would be terrible. He absolutely could not accept it. Therefore, he could not make the first move. He could only receive Wu Chou's third slash. With a clang, Wu Chou finally moved. The sound of the saber being unsheathed resounded throughout the entire arena and clearly entered everyone's ears. This time, not only did people hear the sound of the saber being unsheathed, but they also saw how Wu Chou's left hand drew the saber. Every movement was clearly seen. Wu Chou's action of drawing his saber was imprinted in everyone's eyes. In that instant, everyone seemed to have seen perfection, a kind of extreme perfection. Regarding this point, everyone was so certain, without the slightest bit of doubt. Even though they didn't know how to draw the blade, or how to draw the blade perfectly, when they saw Wu Chou draw the blade and draw the blade, they immediately knew. This feeling was very magical, but it happened. It really happened. Everyone felt this feeling in their hearts. They all felt it very vividly. Therefore, every single one of them couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. They couldn't help but admire a person like Wu Chou. This kind of ability was definitely an incredible ability. Of course, Chu Yang also felt the same way. He couldn't find any fault with it, nor could he see any flaws. Of course, he was also amazed and impressed. If he could do such a thing, he would definitely be proud of himself for the rest of his life. However, he was even more horrified. Wu Chou's blade had actually become so slow that everyone could clearly see him drawing his blade. Seeing him draw his blade was definitely the most terrifying thing in the world. Wu Chou's slash was absolutely terrifying to the extreme. Fortunately, he was able to completely understand the saber at this moment. The essence of the saber wound and no wound, the main branch of the witchcraft Dao, as well as the two branches of the curse Dao and the Jiu poison Dao. This slash contained both the saber era and the witchcraft era. It was a combination of the first two slashes. To be exact, it wasn't accurate to call it a combination. It should be called a perfect combination. For example, the witchcraft Dao's vicious curse Dao and the Jiu poison Dao's technique were completely integrated into the saber wound. It made everything more indestructible and even more terrifying. Chapter 2581. This was also the reason why Wu Chou's third slash was so slow. This saber strike carried the weight of the saber era and the shaman era, causing the saber strike to become abnormally heavy. Naturally, it was also extremely slow. Chu Yang naturally had the inheritances of different eras. The Confucian era, the Immortal era, and the Shaman era. He seemed to have one more era's inheritance than Wu Chou. Blocking this slash didn't seem to be a problem. However, things weren't that simple. Not to mention the fusion of 3 eras, he couldn't even fuse 2 eras. He could only use 1 era to fight. The reason why the fusion of 2 eras was so difficult was actually very simple. Different eras had different civilizations. When the civilizations were different, there would definitely be an intense conflict when they fused. This was like fusing 2 nations into one. The difficulty was imaginable. Of course, if the 2 countries were to merge seamlessly into one, their national strength would definitely reach a terrifying level that would make people tremble in fear. I can't block this slash. At this moment, this was Chu Yang's judgment. Although he had 3 nations, the Confucian era, the Immortal era, and the Shaman era, he could only use the power of one of them. He couldn't make the 3 nations form an alliance to resist the invasion of a superpower. What he needed to do now was very simple. He needed the Confucian era, the Immortal era, and the Shaman era to form an alliance. However, how could this be done in a short time? Wu Chou had probably spent a lot of effort and time to merge the 2 civilizations, the witchcraft era and the witchcraft era. It was impossible for Chu Yang to do it in one go. It could be said that if Chu Yang died or lost, he would lose because of this point. Wu Chou was 1 step ahead of him and walked ahead of him. Under the great pressure, many thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind. He tried to use his spirit power to touch the divine cauldron and the destiny twins. He also wanted to use the Confucian era, the Immortal era, and the Shaman era as a formation seal to combine them into a formation to unleash a great effect. These 3 methods were the most reliable, but he didn't know which one would work. Besides, his time was too short. However, Chu Yang didn't have any difficulty dealing with this. He wasn't sure which one would work, so he just had to use all 3. As long as one of them worked, he would have succeeded. This was the only way. Therefore, dealing with the third slash was actually easier than dealing with the first slash. This was because everything was already very clear. What he could do was also very clear. That was not to say that the first strike was more dangerous than the third strike, but that the third strike was more despairing. This kind of despair made you so clear-headed and clear that you didn't have to struggle. Naturally, you felt very relaxed. Chu Yang directly used 3 plans. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The divine cauldron was touched and instantly shook, causing Chu Yang to shake violently as well. A mystical power surged out. Once the destiny martial spirits were activated, their actions overlapped with the formation used in the third plan. The 2 martial spirits worked together personally, using the Confucian era, the Immortal era, and the Shaman era as formation seals to combine them into a formation. Therefore, Chu Yang felt even more relaxed. He also had less to do. He only needed to use his saber and block. Chapter 2582. This dead face probably thought of this from the very beginning. Even if he can't win, he won't die. He's really treacherous. If anyone tells me that dead face doesn't cherish his life, I'll fight them. At this moment, at the juncture of life and death, Chu Yang's mood suddenly relaxed. And because of this, he was very surprised. At the same time, he was also very happy. He had grown too much in the heavenly soul realm. To be able to relax at such a time, it was really a kind of ability. Wu Chou has the ability, but this martial also has the essence. I'm not inferior to that thing. He was very satisfied with himself. Clang. Wu Chou's saber finally landed on Chu Yang's saber. In such a moment, although the third saber was slower than the first and second saber, it was still very fast. Everyone could only see Wu Chou's saber chopping down and Chu Yang blocking with his saber. They couldn't see anything else. After the 2 sabers came into contact for a short while, everyone saw one of the sabers break. Half of the saber flew out and landed on the arena. The arena was like water. When the half saber landed on it, it was as if it had fallen into water. It instantly sank into the water and disappeared. As for the color of the half saber, no one could see clearly. There was no doubt about the hardness of the arena of the imperial examinations in the grand capital city. In the previous battles between the prodigies, even if they fought for a day and a night, the arena was almost intact. But in front of that half saber, it was like water. Hiss, at this moment, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Their bodies were abnormally cold, and they shivered. On the arena, Wu Chou kept retreating. His feet stepped on the arena as if he was stepping on rotten meat. Every step he took was silent. His ankles completely sank into the arena, and he finally stopped at the edge of the arena. Drip, drip, drip. The beads of blood quickly dripped down the broken saber in his left hand like beads. Unfortunately, not only was the sound very soft, it was also not that pleasant to the ears. At this moment, people could clearly see that Wu Chou's saber was broken. There was only half of the broken saber in his left hand. His entire left arm was in tatters, as if a string of firecrackers had just been lit. His entire arm had exploded, looking extremely miserable. On the other side, Chu Yang still maintained his posture of blocking with his saber, but it seemed that he was not holding up a saber, but a large sun. There were 3 blazing suns in this large sun, which were connected to each other and were constantly rotating. 3 nodes also appeared in his pupils, and they were also connected to each other. They quickly rotated in his pupils, and tentacle-like rays of light floated out from the 3 nodes. Chu Yang had blocked it. Not only had he blocked it, he had even broken Wu Chou's saber, the saber that had cut Wu Ce into 2 halves. This was very shocking, but for a long time, there was no sound from the audience. They were just quietly watching this scene without blinking, as if waiting for Wu Chou's counterattack, or for Chu Yang to take advantage of the victory to pursue an attack. However, such a thing did not happen. You really blocked it easily. It was Wu Chou who broke the silence on the arena. Although his tone was calm, his expression was shocked. Wu Chou thought that Chu Yang could block it, and that he might be defeated. However, he never thought that the final result would be so great. He was the main attacker and had the advantage, but he was defeated so miserably. He was even defeated by the huge rebound force. You make it sound so easy. Chu Yang walked around the gates of hell again. He was really annoyed. Just now, if his attempt had not succeeded, then he would be a dead man now. In addition, he had also paid a price. He could no longer suppress his martial arts realm. Wu Chou did not want to argue with Chu Yang on this issue, so he directly said, "I have lost, and I accept my defeat wholeheartedly." Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Chou immediately flew away, as if he had a great realization that he needed to carefully experience. Whoosh. Chapter 2583. Wu Chou had left. Chu Yang had left. In the blink of an eye, the two people who had decided the victor in the arena had left completely. They were extremely confident, leaving behind only the empty arena, the stunned referee, and the people present. Chu Yang wins. The referee announced Chu Yang's victory in the arena. At the same time, he concluded the imperial martial examination. In fact, many people did not pay attention to what he said, or perhaps they did not hear it at all. I never thought that Wu Chou's third slash would end up like this. His saber directly broke. That was the saber that cut Wu Ce in half, but it actually broke. I never expected this. Although the battle between Chu Yang and Wu Chou could not be seen through, it was still extremely shocking. It was still frightening to watch. Many people thought that Chu Yang would be able to block Wu Chou's third slash, but they never expected this result. Wu Chou was simply too strong, and the saber in his hand was too terrifying. The first two slashes were the best proof, but everything still happened. This could only mean that Wu Chou was strong, but Chu Yang was even stronger. Even someone as strong as Wu Chou was not a match for Chu Yang. With Wu Chou as the standard, people finally had a clear judgment of Chu Yang's strength. Chu Yang was indeed the strongest person in this imperial martial examination, and no one could compare to him. Naturally, Chu Yang deserved to be the champion of the Wushu examination this time around. Huang Fuxian, Shangguan Can, Xie Xiubua, Wang Lingyun, and Chen Buchuan all had extremely solemn and ugly expressions on their faces when they saw this result. Although they had superior backgrounds and were extremely outstanding, they were overshadowed by Chu Yang. They were inferior in both literary and martial arts. They were completely inferior to a country bumpkin like Chu Yang. Rui Zi, on the other hand, was not surprised at all. After he knew that Chu Yang was Song Tangming, even though Wu Chou's blade was very shocking at the beginning, he was still very certain that the final winner would be Chu Yang. And the result was indeed so. As expected of the god of deceit. He is unfathomable and unimaginable. After today, it will be difficult for the god of deceit to deceive people again. Everyone will be afraid of him, so no matter how good his trap is, it will still be very difficult to deceive people. What's very strange is that after the deceiver god won, he actually ran away. Shouldn't he be showing off? Why is he running so fast? Are you stupid? Not only did Wu Chou gain great enlightenment from that battle, Chu Yang must have also gained great enlightenment. He must have gone into seclusion at this time. This was naturally the guess of many people. Wu Chou was indeed like this, but Chu Yang was not. He could not suppress his realm at all and was about to break through to the next realm. The 6 great young masters of Tai capital could slaughter Earth emperors. Wu Ce was one of the 6 great young masters, but he was killed by Wu Chou in one strike. Chu Yang, on the other hand, defeated Wu Chou. This meant that Chu Yang could easily kill Earth emperors. Although according to the heavenly spirit world's martial arts system, he was only at the peak of the Nirvana realm, but his physical body carried the Tao. He could even easily display the great Tao. He was not a saint, but he was better than a saint. And his advancement in realm had long violated the heavenly spirit world's martial arts system. This naturally had a great change in the heavenly spirit world's heavenly Tao. Saints were no longer saints. The earthly sovereign and great emperor realms had also undergone great changes. The entire heavenly spirit world's martial arts system was completely shaken. Chu Yang was standing at the top of the heavenly Tao, so he was naturally greatly affected. However, although the heavenly spirit world's martial arts system was about to collapse, before a new system was formed, the heavenly Tao still operated according to the old system. Chapter 2584. When he left the Imperial Examination Martial stage, he had broken through to the Life and Death realm and the Saint realm, but he still could not stop himself from breaking through to the earthly sovereign realm. The Confucian epoch, the Immortal epoch, and the Shaman epoch. These three epochs were the formation seals. When they combined to form the formation, the driving force was too great. Even if this state was removed immediately, it was still impossible to reverse the situation. Forget it. I'll just pretend that the Imperial Examination isn't over yet. This is the final test. In the Imperial Martial Examination, he had used all sorts of methods to obtain the championship. The difficulty of obtaining the championship was much lower than the others. Therefore, he could still accept such a situation. But this was very dangerous. His body carried the Tao and entered the cycle of reincarnation. He had no idea what would happen. Chu Yang gave up on resisting. A massive black hole suddenly appeared in front of him and sucked him in. At this moment, he had made all sorts of preparations, such as his body being ground up, but when he entered, nothing happened in the darkness. This doesn't make sense. Chu Yang was very puzzled about this. But soon, a strange force acted on his body in the darkness. It suddenly rolled him up, and he didn't know where he had been drawn into. When he could sense his surroundings again, he discovered that he had appeared in front of Duke Ju's residence. And his way out had been blocked. Shangguan Lan's uncle, Shangguan Xiao, was blocking the pass. He was blocking the way. If you want to go in and see Lan Lan, you'll have to defeat me first. Chu Yang was dumbfounded by these words, and when he saw that the world before him was no different, he was even more dumbfounded. Wasn't this commander swept into the cycle of reincarnation? How did I appear in front of Duke Ju's residence? The son-in-law came to see the mother-in-law, and I didn't even make any preparations. How did I come here? It's like I've seen a ghost. Chu Yang was in no mood to think about it and could only respond. He knew that he was not Shangguan Xiao's match. After all, Shangguan Xiao was a great emperor. Thus, he tried to reason with Shangguan Xiao, telling him how outstanding he was, how he excelled in both the pen and the sword, how he had obtained first place in the Imperial Examination, and so on. In the end, Shangguan Xiao directly attacked Chu Yang, forcing Chu Yang to fight back. Shangguan Xiao was a great emperor. He had already placed his soul force into the heavenly Tao. The entire heavenly spirit world was his domain. Chu Yang seemed like he was not his match, but in a battle of life and death, he was actually evenly matched with Shangguan Xiao. The Confucian epoch, the Immortal epoch, and the Shaman epoch were the main reasons. When the three of them fused together, they could easily defeat a martial emperor. When he realized this, he fully activated it and defeated Shangguan Xiao, successfully entering Duke Ju's residence. The second trial was Duke Ju's personal test. He competed with Chu Yang in poetry, calligraphy, painting, zither, chess, and so on. Chu Yang used the calligraphy of his previous life and the Confucian inheritance of the Confucian epoch to successfully pass. He even mocked Duke Ju a little before continuing. At this time, Chu Yang became more and more confused. Everything he had experienced was real, which led him to have such an illusion. It seemed that he had never entered the reincarnation cycle. Although he was very confused, he could only continue with his life and continue to challenge the trials. The third trial was his future father-in-law, Shangguan Yun. The test was very simple, as long as he could outdrink his father-in-law. Chapter 2585. His future mother-in-law was the most troublesome. She asked him how he should deal with the situation in the palace, which made him break out in cold sweat. After that, his future mother-in-law set up various tests to test his character. Whether he loved Shangguan Lan or not, his future mother-in-law would never ask, but there were ways to test him. For example, if a mother and a daughter-in-law fell into the water at the same time, who would you save first? Chu Yang passed all of them in the end and received the approval of everyone in Duke Ju's residence. As the saying goes, when one is ranked in the Imperial Examination, it is the wedding night. Soon, he and Shangguan Lan were going to get married. However, just as they were about to get married, something unexpected happened. The first prince of the Jin dynasty arrived with the imperial guards and announced that Chu Yang was a remnant of the Zhou dynasty. He wanted to kill Chu Yang directly, which led to a great war. Chu Yang was defeated and captured. Then, the Jin crown prince said that Shangguan Lan was the last princess of the Wei dynasty and a remnant of the previous dynasty. If she did not obey him, he would kill everyone related to her. Therefore, Shangguan Lan was forced to marry the crown prince. Under the crown prince's arrangement, Chu Yang witnessed the process of Shangguan Lan marrying the crown prince. Then, he was killed by the crown prince. With his death, this part of his life came to an end. Then, as if his body died, his soul entered the cycle of reincarnation. He felt that he was in the cycle of reincarnation again, but his body still existed. What the hell is going on? Is that really my life? Zhou dynasty, Wei dynasty? Chu Yang was completely dumbfounded. As for the Zhou dynasty and Wei dynasty, in that part of his life, they were subordinate. Wei dynasty was subordinate to the Zhou dynasty, but the Zhou dynasty did not appear in the world. Therefore, people only knew about the Wei dynasty and not the Zhou dynasty. Chu Yang knew about the Wei dynasty. It was the previous dynasty before the Jin dynasty, a supreme dynasty in the heavenly spirit world. But he had never heard of the Zhou dynasty. He was a remnant of the Zhou dynasty. This was even more puzzling and inexplicable. Thus, all of a sudden, he began to suspect that part of his life was fake. However, everything he experienced during that period of time was so painstakingly engraved in his heart. Even now, unwillingness and resentment still filled his heart. Who can tell me what is going on? Is what I just experienced real? What state am I in now? In the endless darkness, Chu Yang couldn't help but roar, almost going crazy. That's not right. Why is there no divine cauldron in that kind of life? I even forgot about the divine cauldron and only remembered it now. Suddenly, Chu Yang was shocked. What exactly made him forget about the divine cauldron? Chu Yang was immersed in his thoughts. While he was pondering over everything, he suddenly felt like he was being crushed by something. The sudden pain made him scream out in pain. At the same time, he also had a feeling that he was like a soybean that was being ground, and his body would soon be ground into powder. Divine cauldron. He couldn't care about anything else and immediately touched the divine cauldron. However, although the divine cauldron was touched, it aided the tyrant and further disintegrated his body, instantly turning him into an existence of nothingness or something else. In any case, at this moment, he didn't know what kind of state he was in. It seemed like he was alive, but also dead. He didn't even know whether he was alive or not. This was undoubtedly a great irony. Wung wung wung. When he felt the divine cauldron vibrate, he felt that the divine cauldron had brought him out of the darkness and suddenly appeared in a certain world. Taijing City. Chu Yang wanted to know where he was, so he quickly looked around. When he turned around and saw Taijing City behind him, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. At this moment, he was in a small forest 10 kilometers away from Taijing City. Chapter 2586. The Taijing City was like a prehistoric giant beast lying behind him. Insects were chirping in the small mountain forest, and cool breezes were blowing from time to time. Poisonous sunlight was constantly projected from the sky, and waves of heat shrouded the world. Even in the small mountain forest, one could not avoid it. The world was like a steamer, very hot and stuffy. Chu Yang clearly felt the stuffy heat and everything in front of him. However, he did not know whether he was in a real world or in a strange state. What the hell is going on? It was like a dream, real and fake, real and fake. He could no longer tell the difference between real and fake. He felt as if he had been living in a dream. Even though everything in front of him was so real, he still felt that it was unreal. The so-called reality was just an illusion. Was the life I just experienced my real life? If it was my real life, I should be dead. Why am I still alive? If that part of my life was fake, why was that part of my life so real? Why was it so hard to remember? After the initial shock and loss of what to do, Chu Yang slowly calmed down. He even used the Destiny Twins' martial spirit to deduce everything. The result of the deduction was more or less like this: because the physical body carried the Tao, he entered the reincarnation. Not only did it involve the test of the Tao, but it also involved the reincarnation of living beings and the reincarnation of living beings. During this process, Chu Yang did not die. His life had not ended. Therefore, in the reincarnation, he had to end his life first before he could enter the reincarnation and be reincarnated. In other words, the life I experienced in the reincarnation is my future life. He seemed to have completely understood, but he felt that it was very inconceivable. The reason why the divine cauldron did not appear in such a life is because the divine cauldron is magical and is not in the long river of fate. The reason why I can experience such a life in the reincarnation and see my future is probably because of the Destiny Twin martial spirit. At this point, Chu Yang had more or less figured out everything. In this way, he was the so-called surviving member of the Zhou dynasty, and Shangguanlan was the princess of the previous dynasty. The Wei kingdom belongs to the Zhou dynasty, and the Zhou dynasty is like the heavenly court, uninvolved in the secular world. If that's the case, then my engagement with Lanlan is not without reason. Now that he had figured this out, he immediately had answers to many of his questions. However, he had to face the cruel fact that the future was extremely bleak. Suddenly, Chu Yang shuddered. If he didn't foresee this, then he would have died in the hands of the first prince with grievances. I can't let this happen. I definitely can't let this happen. His entire body was trembling, and he did not know when, but he was already drenched in cold sweat. His clothes were completely soaked, and he looked as if he had just been fished out of the water. At this moment, his heart was filled with extreme fear. He knew very well that after he won the imperial examination, his disastrous future was getting closer and closer to him. The first prince of the Jin dynasty saw that he was about to marry Shangguanlan. Of course, he couldn't bear it anymore. How did he know the specific identity of Lanlan and me? He knew long ago, but why didn't he make trouble for us? These were two great questions, but who could tell him the answer? Helplessness. Chapter 2587. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew through the forest from time to time. Chu Yang fell into a long period of silence. After an unknown amount of time, he finally calmed down and began to think calmly. We've reached a critical juncture. If I take another step closer to Lanlan, the first prince will definitely be furious. Shangguanlan was the first prince's reverse scale. Chu Yang began to search for a solution. But the situation he and Shangguanlan were in was too bad and too dangerous. If he made the slightest mistake, they would be doomed eternally. This was a burden he couldn't bear. Thus, just to be safe, he planned to enter the cycle of reincarnation again to check his future. He had made a change, but what kind of change would there be in the future? Chu Yang's thoughts moved and a black hole appeared again. Whoosh! He took the initiative to jump in and a new life unfolded before his eyes. Heaven never bars one's way. This is great. Everything came true as expected. Being able to check his future again, Chu Yang was ecstatic. And because he changed, so did his fate. As long as he could find a good solution, he could change his future. Chu Yang's plan was very simple. He would tell Shangguanlan everything he knew and leave the heavenly spirit world with her. They would enter the myriad gods world. But because of this, although he moved the parrot, Duke Zhu, and the others away, the eastern wilderness was destroyed, the eastern continent was destroyed, and anyone who was on good terms with Chu Yang was killed. Chu Yang hated this very much. He and Shangguanlan cultivated in the gods world, and when they were strong enough to kill a great emperor, he entered the heavenly spirit world from the gods world and killed the first prince. This angered the Jin emperor, but in the end, he managed to escape back to the gods world. He thought he was safe, but he didn't expect the Jin emperor to appear in the gods world and kill him, Shangguanlan, and the others. Before he died, he knew that the supreme ruler of the gods world was the Jin emperor's main body, and the Jin emperor was just his avatar. The first prince wasn't his son, he was only an avatar used to enjoy the pleasures of the mortal world. The Jin emperor is just a clone of the sovereign of the gods. The first prince is only for him to enjoy his worldly pleasures. When Chu Yang was brought out of samsara by the cauldron again, his nerves went numb from the shock. The heavenly spirit world and the myriad world were both under the Jinn Emperor's control. The most ridiculous part was that the first prince wasn't the Emperor's son at all. He was himself, his avatar. Such a powerful opponent could be said to be invincible. How could they deal with him? Chu Yang was simply like a beggar. He wanted to deal with an emperor and overthrow a dynasty. He was simply overestimating his own capabilities and was completely ignorant. But now, what could he do? After another round of crazy deductions, he entered the reincarnation cycle to check on his future. The Jinn Emperor was too powerful and invincible. So this time, he directly gave Shangguan Lan to the Jinn Emperor. However, the result was still very miserable. The eastern wilderness and the eastern continent couldn't escape the fate of destruction. His 10 clans were all killed. Even Shangguan Lan died tragically in the end. The reason was simple. Whether it was Chu Yang giving up Shangguan Lan or Shangguan Lan's submission, it was somewhat abnormal. The first prince became suspicious. After all, Chu Yang and Shangguan Lan were both remnants of the Jinn Emperor's evil. So, the first prince suspected that the two were secretly accumulating strength. When they had enough strength, they would definitely turn around and attack. So, the first prince didn't have any real evidence. But he couldn't tolerate such a hidden danger, so he killed them. This won't work. Then what should I do? Chapter 2588. The 5th time. The 6th time. The 7th time. He kept trying, but the Jinn Emperor was too powerful. He ruled over the heavenly soul world and the divine world. He could not find a way to change his fate. He tried tirelessly, and unknowingly, he entered the reincarnation 9 times. On the 10th time, when he tried to enter the reincarnation, it did not appear again. What's going on? Unable to enter the reincarnation, Chu Yang's only hope was extinguished. He could not help but be stunned. 9 times, has it been 9 times? Soon, he found the reason. 9 times was the limit, but he was frustrated and furious. I saw the future 9 times. Can't I save myself and Lan Lan? Such an opportunity, not to mention 9 times, just 1 time could rewrite his life. But after 9 such opportunities, he still could not find a way to rewrite his life. In the end, he would die in the hands of the Jinn Emperor. He was almost going crazy. 9 opportunities to change his fate were useless. He could not shake the Jinn Emperor at all. What else can I do? There must be another way. Calm down, calm down. Chu Yang, you must have a way. Chu Yang was like an ant on a hot pan. He was sitting on pins and needles all the time. He could not calm down for a moment. He had completely fallen into madness. He did not have much time. In the imperial examination in Taijing City, whether it was the written examination or the wushu examination, he was too dazzling. Once the Jinn Emperor knew about it, he would immediately take action. If he could not come up with a complete solution, he could only die in endless unwillingness and anger. He could not die in peace. 9th Duke's Mansion, Shangguan Lan. When Chu Yang entered the reincarnation for the first time, Shangguan Lan was aware of it. In an instant, as if she had been electrocuted, she could not help but tremble. Then, a picture appeared in her mind. Brother Yang, is he using the Destiny Twins' martial spirit to check his fate? At first, Shangguan Lan was surprised and happy. The reason why she knew that Chu Yang had the Destiny Twins' martial spirit was naturally because she also had a special martial spirit. After 9 years of contact with Chu Yang, she slowly realized it. The reason why she could see the future Chu Yang saw in the reincarnation was that she was completely bound to Chu Yang through her martial spirit. As a result, her fate was completely bound to Chu Yang. What? When Shangguan Lan saw Chu Yang's complete future, her beautiful face turned pale and she cried out in horror. The first prince had already known her and Chu Yang's identities. Her heart instantly sank into an ice cave, freezing to the bone. Her heart seemed to have frozen into a red lotus. When she found out that the Jinn Emperor was only a clone of the highest ruler of the God's world, the first prince was also a clone, and that the heavenly spirit world and the God's world were under the control of the same person, She was even more terrified and didn't know what to do. Her only hope was Chu Yang. Her only ray of light was Chu Yang. However, even after Chu Yang had used up his 9 chances of reincarnation, he still hadn't found a way. This last ray of hope, this last ray of light, was also disappearing bit by bit. Brother Yang. Shangguanlan did not need to use her brain to think that Chu Yang used up 9 reincarnations in such a hurry. She knew what kind of state Chu Yang was in right now and what kind of mentality he was in. Or perhaps, she felt that she could not imagine what kind of pressure Chu Yang was bearing at this moment. The enemy they were facing was too strong. Grandfather, father, mother, she thought of Duke Ju and the others. Duke Ju was naturally not her biological grandfather. Her current parents were naturally not her biological parents. They were hiding a great secret for her. Therefore, Shangguanlan found it hard to imagine that because of her, these people she loved were all slaughtered. What should I do? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,